Chapter 26. What is this? Staring into those strange eyes, the three examiners involuntarily shuddered. At that moment, it felt as though their innermost darkness was laid bare. This unsettling sensation left all three trembling. Just as I suspected, something isn't right with those eyes, Netero murmured, his eyes narrowing. At this point, how could he fail to understand? When they'd competed over the volleyball earlier, the inexplicable changes within him had undoubtedly stemmed from the peculiar eyes Leo possessed. Subconsciously, Netero's mind raced through all the special eyes he knew of in the hunter world. Eventually, his thoughts stopped on a certain exterminated clan. They somewhat resemble the Scarlet Eyes, but as far as I recall, Scarlet Eyes don't have Magatama patterns, Netero mused aloud, stroking his chin thoughtfully. Apart from the Scarlet Eyes, he could recall no other known eyes that matched the ones Leo now had. Meanwhile, Leo changed his posture, ceasing his float in midair and gently landing back onto solid ground. Observing the azure energy swirling around him like a tornado, he smiled faintly. Just as I expected. Taking Netero's Nen outburst at such close proximity was exactly enough to open every pore in my body. Earlier, he'd been too close to Netero, so close they'd practically touched. Being struck head-on by Netero's Nen burst at that range meant his entire body had absorbed it. And who was Netero? Arguably the strongest Nen user in the world. Netero's immense mental power effortlessly broke through Leo's previously blocked aura nodes. This enabled Leo to achieve his immediate goal, awakening his Nen ability. Now, seeing Leo regain consciousness, Netero swiftly set aside concerns about his eyes and urgently advised. Leo, listen carefully. Now, imagine the energy in your body flowing like blood. But before Netero could finish speaking, his eyes widened in shock. The azure energy tornado surrounding Leo had suddenly calmed down. In a mere instant, the violent tempest of aura turned into a gentle breeze, enveloping Leo and flowing serenely around him. This was Ten, a foundational Nen technique that stabilizes chaotic aura within the body. It's also crucial for survival after forcibly awakening one's Nen. Having watched the anime, Leo knew precisely what steps to take when forcibly activating Nen. Thus, stabilizing the aura leaking from his body was practically effortless. Interesting. It feels like I'm immersed in some kind of rich liquid, or perhaps wearing a weightless cloak. Leo raised his hands slightly, observing the subtle changes in his body as he made these observations. Although unusual, the feeling quickly grew familiar, prompting him to exhale deeply in satisfaction. It had been a full year. He'd finally awakened his Nen. This was fantastic, it was truly exhilarating from the bottom of his heart. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Laughing wildly, Leo's mouth opened wide in an unrestrained expression of excitement. In response, the aura he just stabilized erupted outward uncontrollably through his pores. Boom. Crack, crack, crack. A burst of aura dozens of times stronger than before instantly filled the entire training room. The immense force effortlessly pierced through Satotz's defensive enhancements. Even walls strengthened by Satotz's aura fractured, displaying spider-web-like cracks. Witnessing this, Netero immediately sensed the danger, shouting instinctively, "Oh no!" Leo's aura was too potent. So overwhelming that even a casual release surpassed Satotz's strengthening limits. Without hesitation, Netero swiftly released his own powerful Nen, hastily reinforcing the cracked walls, narrowly preventing the training room from complete destruction. After stabilizing the room, he turned urgently towards Leo, calling out clearly, "Leo, let me teach you how to restrain that power." In Netero's view, Leo's outburst was due simply to his lack of control over newly awakened aura. To prevent further chaos, Netero intended to teach Leo immediately how to manage and restrain his overflowing aura. Leo, realizing his momentary excitement had nearly destroyed the entire airship, promptly pretended to pay close attention. Following Netero's guidance, he gradually reined in the unleashed aura, calmly returning it to his body. Yet even so, his composed demeanor astonished Menki and the others, leaving them utterly dumbfounded and questioning reality. This is impossible. You've only just awakened your Nen, yet you handle it as smoothly as a veteran hunter with over 10 years of experience? Can this kind of talent truly belong to a human? The hunter world was never short of talent. But someone like Leo, who could instantly master their aura upon awakening, was exceedingly rare. At this moment, such astonishing talent piqued Netero's interest greatly. Stroking his beard, eyes gleaming sharply, he suddenly declared, "Leo, I'll teach you Nen personally." Menki, Buara, and Satats were stunned, turning to Netero in shock. Did Netero intend to take Leo as his disciple? Facing their suddenly intense gazes, Leo smiled calmly, slowly turning to face Netero, respectfully replying, "Then please guide me well, old man." Chapter 27. On the top floor, in Netero's personal training room. Ho, impressive indeed. Both Leo and Menki's auras are looking quite good. Netero sat cross-legged on a cushion, sipping strong tea with a smile as he observed Leo and Menki. At this moment, Leo and Menki were also seated cross-legged on their cushions, eyes closed in deep meditation. 3 days had passed since Leo awakened his Nen. According to Mizukin's water divination test, he was determined to be an emitter. Originally, Netero had planned to train Leo alone, but Menki had seized the opportunity, requesting permission to join the training as well. Although having an additional student wasn't in the initial plan, it posed no real trouble for Netero. He readily agreed to let Menki attend. Right now, he was having both students demonstrate their 10. The basic Nen technique of concentrating the mind, calming emotions, and stabilizing aura flow. Netero observed closely, assessing their mastery by how steadily they maintained their 10. However, feeling Leo's smoothly flowing aura, and noticing the occasional disturbances in Menki's 10, Netero's eyes flickered thoughtfully. How frightening. It's only been 3 days since he awakened his Nen. But in terms of mastering 10, Leo already surpasses Menki, who has been practicing Nen for several years. With talent like this, once fully grown, he might become an extraordinary monster. Another Jing, perhaps? At this thought, Netero felt his emotions briefly waver. But compared to his fluctuating mood, he was more concerned about Leo's future. With talent like his, it'd be fine if he was as indifferent to fame as Jing. But why do I feel uneasy? Did I just awaken a monster? Suddenly, a curious voice broke his reverie. "Hey, old man. I've called you several times already. What are you spacing out for?" Hearing this, Netero snapped back to attention. When he raised his gaze, he saw Leo and Menki staring at him curiously. Well, Netero hesitated, momentarily speechless. He couldn't possibly admit that Leo's overwhelming talent made him uneasy. If he said that aloud, he'd lose face as chairman of the Hunters Association. Quickly regaining composure, he rolled his eyes slightly and offered an explanation. I was just thinking about how quickly you'll master advanced Nen techniques with your talent." Hearing this explanation, Leo and Menki seemed skeptical. But since Netero had already said this, neither pressed further. Menki asked directly, "Chairman, how are we doing with 10?" Though she already guessed the answer. Before hearing the truth directly from Netero, she still held a faint hope in her heart. But, ho. Menki, you'll need a lot more practice with your 10. Netero stroked his beard and chuckled lightly, unconcerned about sparing Menki's feelings. Hearing this blunt assessment, Menki's expression stiffened briefly, yet she felt a strange sense of relief deep inside. After all, she was fully aware of Leo's extraordinary talent. Though unwilling to lose to such a freakishly talented individual, accepting reality wasn't overly difficult. "So, how about my 10? Seeing Netero only commenting about Menki, Leo couldn't help feeling curious about what evaluation his 10 would receive. "Your 10. Netero hesitated slightly, debating whether to tell the whole truth. However, facing Leo's expectant gaze, he ultimately spoke plainly, "Is extremely good." Leo had only just learned 10 3 days prior. Though he mastered it rapidly at the start, his initial attempts weren't entirely stable. The previous aura leakage was clear evidence of that. Yet now, only 3 days later, Leo's aura was astonishingly stable and perfectly controlled around his body. Faced with such extraordinary talent, even Netero found it difficult to criticize him. However, to avoid Leo becoming overly proud, Netero slowly rose from his seat, speaking directly to Leo. "But even if your 10 is good, you've yet to reach its true pinnacle." In the next instant, Netero's aura completely vanished. No, vanished wasn't the right word, it was more accurate to say it simply stopped. "What, Chairman? What technique is this? Did you actually stop breathing?" Seeing Netero's current state, Menki immediately jumped to her feet, her eyes wide with shock. Only Leo, clearly sensing Netero's situation, appeared thoughtful and intrigued. A moment ago, standing right before Leo and Menki, Netero had activated 10, yet the instant he did, his aura seemed utterly still. Had he not been visibly standing there, Leo and Menki might have mistaken him for a lifeless object devoid of aura. Utter calmness. The pinnacle of absolute stillness. Yet beneath this tranquility lay boundless potential for explosive action, a state that felt suffocatingly oppressive. Instinctively, without any warning, Leo suddenly made his move. Crack. A bolt of azure lightning streaked through the air, instantly closing in on Netero. But snap. With a soft sound, Netero's body shifted subtly, slicing cleanly through the lightning bolt with his bare hand. No. It was an afterimage. An afterimage left by extreme speed. By the time Leo realized it, Netero's knife hand had effortlessly dispersed his attack. "This is..." Leo's eyes widened sharply. The three Magatama slowly spun in his Sharingan eyes, analyzing everything clearly. Through the Sharingan's observation, Leo finally understood the profound secret behind Netero's current state. The ultimate stillness, transitioning instantly into ultimate movement. In the instant of attack, Netero had seamlessly bridged these two extremes. Witnessing this phenomenon, Leo recalled a similar concept from another world, a realm of combat mastery described vividly as quiet as the sky, swift as lightning. Chapter 28. Your 10 is quite good already. But there is still room for improvement. Keep working hard, Leo. However, before the training officially begins, I'll first explain in detail all the practical Nen techniques. After offering Leo a bit of advice, Netero seated himself at a low table and began his Nen instruction. Even though Leo already knew this information, it wouldn't hurt to review it meticulously. Meanwhile, Menki quietly assumed the role of tea server, occasionally refilling Netero's and Leo's cups. One could say this was simply her way of showing support, couldn't they? At this moment, a whiteboard stood beside the coffee table. Its content was neatly divided into two sections, left and right. On the left side were written vertically, 10, Zetsu, Ren, Hatsu, titled, 4 Major Principles. On the right side were written vertically, Shu, In, Gyo, En, Ken, Ryu, Ko, titled, Advanced Techniques. Everything was displayed clearly and organized at a glance. Netero stood next to the whiteboard, pointer in hand, as he explained seriously. The practice of Nen can be divided into 10, Zetsu, Ren, Hatsu, and the advanced techniques Shu, In, Gyo, En, Ken, Ryu, and Ko. The left side lists Nen's 4 major principles, and the right side describes the advanced applications derived from them. As he spoke, Netero demonstrated each technique personally. 10. Stabilizing aura on the body's surface, serving as basic defense against Nen attacks. Zetsu, concealing one's aura and presence completely, allowing physical and mental recovery. Ren, releasing and amplifying one's aura beyond normal limits, significantly boosting strength. Using Gyo to focus aura into a specific body part, enveloping that area with Shu, while suppressing aura in other areas through Zetsu. This allowed for immense localized strengthening, called Ko. Aside from Hatsu, which varied individually and wasn't demonstrated, Netero thoroughly demonstrated each technique he mentioned. Meanwhile, the moment Netero showed these techniques, Leo activated his 3 Tomoe Sharingan, instantly observing and copying them. Leo, that's the overview of Nen training. With your talent, besides developing your own Hatsu, you should already be able to use the other 3 major principles. Let's see how well you've mastered them. Netero watched Leo intently. Even he was curious, after just one explanation and demonstration, to what extent had Leo mastered Nen. I understand, old man. Leo calmly stood up and walked to the center of the training room. Closing his eyes, Leo took a deep breath, exhaled slowly, then abruptly opened his eyes. Ren. Crackle. Zap. Sizzle. Azure aura erupted violently from his body. Pure lightning currents surged across his form, crackling continuously. Simultaneously. Boom. The overflowing aura transformed into a massive pillar of thunder, shooting straight upward, instantly piercing the ceiling and soaring into the sky. Dust filled the air as debris rained down from above. Amidst the flying debris, Netero and Menki stared, stunned, at Leo surrounded by a furious tempest of thunderous aura. A genius? No, calling him a genius was now insufficient. This was a monster, an absolute monster. He'd barely learned Nen techniques, yet he could already unleash such overwhelming power. Leo, are you even human? Menki raised her arms protectively, struggling to resist the crushing pressure of Leo's aura. This is... Netero's eyes glittered with intrigue. Even though he had long recognized Leo's monstrous talent, seeing this scene still prompted him to sigh deeply. This old man really has unleashed a monster. Ring ring ring. Suddenly, a phone call interrupted everything. 3 pairs of eyes turned simultaneously toward the table in front of Netero, where the phone was ringing. This is Netero. Ah, apologies, I was in the middle of training. Everything should continue as usual. Netero casually handled the unexpected call. After hanging up, his gaze returned to Leo, an unreadable look in his eyes as he asked quietly. Have you secretly practiced these techniques, over the past 3 days? No, this is my first attempt, Leo shook his head sincerely. He wasn't lying. During those 3 days, he had meditated, becoming more familiar with his Thunderfruit powers and further developing his Sharingan. Actual Nen practice hadn't begun until now. Hearing Leo's reply, Netero's eyes flickered thoughtfully, and he ventured. Now, without worrying about the 4 basic principles, demonstrate the advanced techniques. Alright. Just don't be too shocked, Leo shrugged indifferently. He had nothing to hide anyway. After saying this, Leo sequentially demonstrated Shu, In, Gyo, En, Ken, Ryu, and Ko with flawless precision. Upon witnessing Leo execute Shu, Menki's eyes widened in disbelief, while Netero narrowed his gaze, hiding his thoughts behind a sip of tea. Leo continued, seamlessly performing in, yo, and n. By now, Menki merely stared blankly, numbed by shock, whereas Netero's expression had become deeply contemplative. Ignoring their reactions, Leo finished by performing Ken, Ryu, and finally Ko with ease. Menki had completely given up comprehension at this point, quietly joining Netero at the table, sipping tea. Only Netero seemed to fully grasp what had happened. After a considerable silence, Netero downed his remaining tea in one gulp. He rose calmly, walked slowly toward Leo, squinted slightly, and bluntly asked, "Leo, it seems your eyes aren't just capable of illusions, are they?" "Indeed, my eyes possess an ultimate observational ability," Leo admitted plainly. Considering Netero's extensive experience, Leo saw no reason to hide this from him. However, he didn't foolishly reveal everything, just enough to inform him. "When I activate these eyes, I can clearly observe others' aura flows and instantly learn from them." Netero showed an understanding look, murmuring thoughtfully to himself. "So, when I demonstrated the advanced Nen techniques just now, you copied them immediately, didn't you?" Leo smiled calmly. He gave no verbal confirmation, but Netero had already received his answer from Leo's knowing smile. Chapter 29. In Netero's exclusive training room. Sizzle sizzle crackle tilde. Leo floated cross-legged in midair, electrical currents sporadically crackling around his body. Perhaps due to his thunder fruit powers, whenever Leo practiced, his Nen transformed into lightning, significantly altering the surrounding atmosphere. At this moment, the air above the training room brimmed with dense aura. Azure thunderclouds twisted and churned continuously, exerting immense pressure. Since Leo awakened his Nen, nearly half a month had passed. When Leo used his Sharingan to copy and perfectly replicate Nen techniques, Netero was astonished. Still, to prevent Leo from growing complacent, Netero had proposed a sparring match. However, since awakening Nen and mastering all basic techniques, Leo's combat power had dramatically increased. Far from losing, he actually fought Netero to a standstill. Of course, this occurred under the condition that Netero refrained from using his 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva, Hyakushiki Cannon. Yet even without his ultimate technique, the match clearly proved Leo's strength, leaving Netero with no choice but to formally accept Leo as his disciple. Having officially become Netero's disciple, Leo's current training now revolved around 3 key points. Meditation, to improve control over his aura. Developing his unique Hatsu by combining Nen with his Thunder Fruit and Sharingan. Intensive physical training to further strengthen his body, since the body was fundamental to all power. Currently, Leo was planning his personal Hatsu development. Recalling the traits of an emitter, he murmured thoughtfully. According to HxH's personality test, emitters are typically careless, impatient, and quick-tempered. My personality doesn't match that. So, being classified as an emitter probably stems from my original body's influence. Truthfully, most experienced transmigrators in the hunter world ended up with specialist-type Nen. However, he alone had awakened as an emitter, which admittedly felt a bit uncomfortable. But rather than comfort, he was far more concerned with how suitable emitter-type Nen was for him. Emitters were capable of projecting aura outside the body, maintaining power and effectiveness at long distances, even manipulating aura to take different forms, attack enemies, or execute specific commands. Simply put, the emitter category specialized in long-range attacks. Coincidentally, his Thunder Fruit attacks relied precisely on emitting electricity outward from his body, making the emitter type incredibly compatible with his natural abilities. Considering this, Leo rubbed his chin, eyes sparkling thoughtfully. Perhaps, compared to other Nen categories, being an emitter truly suits me best. Suddenly, Ding ding. The training room's door chimed as Menki casually opened it and walked in. "Yo Leo." Menki greeted cheerfully. Leo snapped out of his thoughts, nodded back in greeting, then pointed to the teapot on the coffee table, asking, "Want a cup?" He had been practicing here for half a month. Meanwhile, Menki had taken an interest in recipes from his hometown. She often visited him, and without realizing it, they'd grown significantly closer. "Absolutely. The chairman's tea is top-tier quality. He usually guards it fiercely, getting a sip is nearly impossible." Menki didn't bother with courtesy. She picked up the teapot directly, poured herself a cup, and leisurely took a sip. Leo wasn't bothered by her casual attitude. Instead, he calmly drank from his own cooled tea. Having enjoyed her tea, Menki finally remembered her original purpose for coming. Setting down her cup, she said, "Oh, right, I almost forgot. The list of candidates who passed the fourth phase of the exam is out. The chairman just informed us we'll be heading to Zevil Island to collect the successful candidates and then travel together to the final exam site." Hearing that the final exam was about to begin, Leo suddenly realized half a month had passed already. He felt slightly curious, wondering how Shanark and Shizuku were doing now. With his intervention, Shizuku wouldn't be eliminated by Illumi this time, so he asked, "Who are the candidates who've passed to the final exam?" Perhaps because they'd grown familiar over these past 2 weeks, Leo's tone came off very casually. Menki didn't mind this at all. On the contrary, she seemed pleased he had asked. Smiling, she replied enthusiastically, "This year's batch is extraordinary. In previous years, only 2 or 3 would make it to the final phase, sometimes none at all. But this year, 10 candidates have qualified. Hisaka, Jitteriker, Hanzo, Killua, Gon, Kurapika, Leorio, Pakal, Shizuku, and Badoro." Listening to Menki's explanation, Leo narrowed his eyes, noticing something unusual. If he recalled correctly, another candidate originally qualified but ended up being killed by Killua during the final exam. A candidate named Badoro? Confused, Leo asked Menki, "I remember another candidate named Badoro. Didn't he make it to the fourth phase? Why didn't he pass?" Hearing his confusion, Menki rolled her eyes dramatically at Leo. "Are you seriously clueless, or just playing dumb?" Candidate number 374, Shanark, targeted Badoro directly. "Think about it, being hunted by a Nen user, how could Badoro possibly survive?" Leo felt slightly embarrassed. He completely overlooked the variable of Shanark. It seemed Badoro was no longer destined to be killed by Killua, but rather had met his end at Shanark's hands. Apparently, Badoro's sole reason for existence was to become a casualty during this hunter exam. Quickly pulling his thoughts back, Leo turned to Menki again, asking seriously, "Since you've come to inform me, I assume the association has already set a departure time?" "Yep. Scheduled for 4 p.m. You, me, Buara, Satots, Chairman Netero, and Beans will all travel together by airship." Facing Leo's suddenly serious gaze, Menki flushed slightly, averting her eyes and feigning indifference as she answered. Noticing this reaction, Leo waved dismissively, thinking nothing further of it. He turned around, heading straight toward the bathroom inside the training room, and reminded her, "Since we're leaving soon, I'll go shower first. You should prepare as well." Watching Leo's retreating back, Menki blushed again, murmuring softly to herself, "This little bastard. Does he seriously not see me as a girl?" Chapter 30. 1600 hours, 4 p.m. The airship slowly lifted off, heading toward Zevil Island. As a newly recognized professional hunter, Leo was dragged by Menki to participate in the Hunter Association's tea gathering. Halfway through the tea party, Netero suddenly laughed and remarked cheerfully. Thinking about it now, 8 out of the 10 finalists this year are newcomers. What a fantastic harvest. Hearing this, Menki immediately thought of Leo and subconsciously added, "Chairman, don't forget Leo is also a newcomer who took the test for the first time this year." As soon as these words left her mouth, Lipo glanced over sharply, his eyes narrowing. Leo passed the chairman's hidden test and qualified directly as a professional hunter. Lipo wasn't personally familiar with Leo. However, information gathering was a fundamental skill for a professional hunter. Though he hadn't been present for all tests personally, he had easily uncovered plenty of intel about Leo. The chairman personally assisted in awakening his nen, a direct disciple of the Shingon-ryu dojo, trained exclusively in the chairman's private training room, and so on. Each of these points alone would spark significant discussion among hunters. Yet all these remarkable achievements were tied to a single person. As a veteran hunter, Lipo clearly understood the implications. Chairman Netero had likely discovered yet another monstrously talented individual. Thinking of this, Lipo's thoughts shifted to the prodigies among the Zodiac 12, his eyes narrowing further. He absolutely could not underestimate Leo. At this moment, after hearing Menki's impulsive remark, Netero raised an eyebrow teasingly at her, laughing playfully. Ho ho ho. I hadn't even brought up Leo yet, Menki. Are you perhaps already eager to declare your interest in him? Suddenly having her secret exposed. Even someone normally carefree like Menki turned bright red, stammering as she tried to cover her embarrassment. Chairman, what nonsense are you saying? Leo and I have a 4-year age gap, I only think of him as a younger brother. Hearing her rushed explanation, Leo glanced briefly at Menki, a faint smile pulling at the corner of his lips. Could it be, another girl has taken a liking to me without my noticing? Satots and Boara also sensed something unusual. Having known Menki for a long time, they understood her personality well. In the past, she probably would have laughed it off or joked about it. But now her reaction was clearly suspicious, sparking their curiosity. Subconsciously, Satots and Boara exchanged glances, instantly understanding each other's thoughts. Ahem. Boara cleared his throat gently and innocently teased, Menki, the chairman didn't mention your age just now. Though Boara appeared simple-minded, one didn't become a professional hunter by actually being naive. Menki was momentarily stunned. She hadn't realized she'd accidentally exposed her greatest insecurity. Boara, you. Menki abruptly stood up. But the very next second, she noticed everyone's gaze on her. Satots' thoughtful look, Boara's pretend innocence, Netero's amused teasing, Bean's confused blinking, Lipo's curious stare. And above all, Leo's deeply attentive eyes. Chairman, you're bullying me. Completely flustered, Menki panicked. No matter how carefree she usually was, she was still a young woman. Her inner feelings had just been publicly revealed. In front of the person she liked, no less. This sudden exposure overwhelmed her completely, and without thinking clearly, she fled the room like an ordinary girl in distress. Bang! Everyone stared at the shaking door, watching her retreating figure disappearing in panic. The mischievous glint in Netero's eyes became even brighter as he turned teasingly toward Leo. Leo, hurry after her. This is your chance, don't waste it. Satots, Boara, Lipo, and Beans all nodded vigorously in agreement, offering encouragement. Indeed, opportunities like this don't come often. Leo, go quickly. If you're late, you might miss your chance. Mr. Leo, although I've never been in love myself, according to romance guides, this is exactly when you should comfort her. Leo, you've got to be kidding. He hadn't said a single word. How had the situation escalated to this? However, Leo narrowed his eyes thoughtfully. It would be dishonest to say he had no feelings for Menki at all. Menki had fair skin, lovely features, and long legs, but more importantly, she had impressive talent and inner strength. Coincidentally, Leo found strong, talented girls most attractive. Thinking this through, he made an excuse: "I'm heading to the restroom." But the men present misunderstood completely, immediately teasing him again. "Of course, go ahead. We totally understand, no need to explain. Don't wait too long, or you really might lose her." Ignoring these idle older men, Leo left the room, immediately activating his extending his aura to cover the entire airship, easily locating Menki. Personal quarters. Menki lay face down on her bed, burying her burning cheeks in a pillow, shyly tossing and turning. "Oh my God, how humiliating. Why did I bring up my age? This is awful. Now Leo knows. What should I do?" When exactly had she become aware of Leo? It was probably during the second test, when Leo sighed softly, "I might never find my way back home again." During the past half-month, they'd frequently met in the training room. She gradually noticed that Leo differed from other guys she'd met before. He possessed terrifying talent. But even more impressive was his diligence, turning that innate talent into genuine strength. As they grew closer, Leo's significance in her heart steadily increased, until she eventually found herself falling for him without realizing it. But, having her feelings suddenly exposed like this, Menki was completely unprepared. Just then, crackle zap! A sudden flash of lightning burst into her room, slowly solidifying into a familiar figure. Seeing Menki rolling around shyly on the bed, Leo chuckled quietly. His sudden laughter startled Menki into immediately sitting upright. She quickly raised her head, face completely flushed as she stammered nervously, "Leo, what are you, But before she could finish, her words were firmly silenced. Menki's eyes widened in utter disbelief. Chapter 31. The airship slowly landed. Candidates who passed the fourth phase boarded the vessel. After half a month, Leo finally reunited with Shanark and Shizuku. Leo. The moment they met, Shanark suddenly rushed forward and hugged Leo tightly, greedily inhaling his familiar scent. Shanark had grown up on Meteor City. He could have endured loneliness for decades without issue. But after spending a full year alongside Leo and receiving his meticulous companionship, Shanark had grown deeply accustomed to Leo's presence. So even though they'd only been apart half a month, upon seeing Leo again, Shanark could not suppress the intense longing he felt. "Shanark, I'm here," Leo said warmly. Although Shanark's sudden embrace was unexpected, Leo reacted quickly, gently holding him and reassuring him quietly. Nearby, Shizuku observed this affectionate reunion, envy briefly flickering in her eyes. However, this envy quickly turned to determination. During these 2 weeks, she'd thought deeply about her feelings and finally made up her mind. "Leo. Captain. I actually missed you too." Quickly approaching Leo, under his astonished gaze, Shizuku boldly stepped forward and embraced him as well. Leo found himself suddenly holding Shanark in one arm and Shizuku in the other. At that moment, the other candidates boarding the airship happened to witness this striking scene. Silence immediately fell over everyone. It appeared all the other men were very single. Hanzo muttered enviously, "I'm so jealous." Pakal grumbled, No way, this is unfair." Leorio cried out dramatically, "There were only 2 girls left in this test, and they both jumped into Leo's arms." Kurapika coughed lightly, pointing out calmly, "Ahem, there seem to be more than just those 2. Look over there." Following his gaze, the group saw Menki break away from the line of waiting examiners. She approached Leo directly, lifted her chin proudly under the shocked gazes of Shanark and Shizuku, and then brazenly wedged herself between them. Shanark and Shizuku, dash? Leo coughed lightly in embarrassment, quickly explaining, ahem, there's a reason for this. Just consider Menki as one of us now. Shanark didn't mind at all. Growing up in Meteor City, he firmly believed strength dictated privilege. From his viewpoint, Leo was strong enough to be surrounded by multiple companions. As for Shizuku, strictly speaking, her relationship with Leo was even more ambiguous than Menki's. At least, until now, Leo hadn't given her a definitive answer. Thus, regarding Menki's appearance, although initially surprised, both accepted her without issue. As proof, the two subtly adjusted their positions, making room on either side to comfortably accommodate her. This peaceful scene rendered the other men speechless, staring blankly in stunned silence. Meanwhile, amazing, Gon exclaimed in innocent admiration. TCH, when I grow up, I'll definitely have way more girls around me than him, Killua scoffed disdainfully. Leorio rubbed his chin enviously. If I ask Leo for advice, do you think he'd teach me how to charm women? After 2 weeks, Kurapika no longer feared Leo like before, instead making a thoughtful observation. Have you noticed something? Shanark, Shizuku, and Menki are all older than Leo. Hearing this, Gon tilted his head curiously, asking, "Eh? What does that mean?" Killua grinned mischievously, chuckling knowingly. What else could it mean? It means Leo likes the older ones. But Gon, you don't see an issue with it either, maybe you like them older too. Suddenly embarrassed by Killua's teasing, Gon's face turned bright red, and he lunged playfully at Killua. But Killua deftly dodged, and Gon collided instead with Kurapika and Leorio, sparking a playful scuffle among the four. Watching from afar, Chairman Netero smiled gently, stroking his beard with amusement. "Chairman, shouldn't we intervene?" Satots asked respectfully. Netero waved casually, replying easily. They've endured a lot of tension during their time on Zeevil Island. Let them relax for now. Since Netero had spoken, Satots and the other staff members stepped back, allowing the youthful chaos to continue uninterrupted. While the candidates played, the airship quietly rose into the sky again, gently heading toward the final exam's location. Night fell. In Leo's private quarters, inside the bathroom, the sound of running water mixed intermittently with excited exclamations. Until finally, the Hunter Association's announcement echoed through the speakers. The intense session, lasting several hours, finally came to an end. Dear candidates, we apologize for the wait. We'll soon arrive at the venue for the final exam. Please make your preparations. Inside the bath, Leo released an exhausted Shizuku, letting her lean against him weakly as he settled comfortably into the warm water, breathing deeply. Time flew by so quickly, I barely noticed. Has it really been that long since we boarded the airship? Nestled comfortably against Leo, Shanark nodded sleepily in agreement. Having reunited with Leo after half a month apart, he barely noticed time passing at all. Only Shizuku rolled her eyes in mild irritation, muttering sarcastically. Of course you two barely felt the time. Meanwhile, I genuinely thought I might die at one point. During the fourth phase, Shanark had forcefully helped Shizuku awaken her Nen ability. She was a conjurer, and though recently awakened, she could already reinforce her body significantly using aura. Thanks to this physical enhancement, she managed, just barely, to endure Leo's relentless affection. Recalling his own initial experiences, Shanark glanced sympathetically at Shizuku. He knew exactly how that had felt. But later, things improved dramatically, eventually becoming incredibly enjoyable. Hearing Shizuku's complaints, Leo gently pulled her closer, soothingly reassuring her. The first time is usually rough. Don't worry, it'll be easier next time, I'll be gentler. Upon hearing Leo's comforting words, Shizuku's irritation faded, replaced by a contented smile as she relaxed fully into Leo's embrace. Half an hour later, the airship gently touched down on the hotel's helipad. This landing officially signaled the start of the Hunter exam's final phase. Chapter 32. In the hotel lobby, everyone was neatly arranged into 3 groups based on their roles: examiners, referees, candidates. Leo, having already earned professional hunter status, stood casually beside Menki. Menki glanced at him unhappily but said nothing. At that moment, Netero spoke clearly. This hotel is run exclusively by the Hunter Association. It will cater to you until the final exam concludes. Right after his announcement, a staff member wheeled over a large whiteboard, hidden behind a curtain, piquing everyone's curiosity even further. Without wasting time, Netero swiftly pulled down the curtain, revealing the board's contents fully. This is. Every candidate's number appeared clearly on the board, arranged into a bracket-style chart. Looking closely, it seemed only one candidate would eventually rise to the top. Many candidates looked deeply unsettled. Leorio, in particular, remarked gloomily. "You've got to be joking. The way this chart looks, doesn't it imply we need to fight until only one is left standing?" At his words, seeing everyone's uneasy expressions, Netero laughed heartily. "Ho ho ho tilde. Don't misunderstand. To pass this final test, you only need to win a single match." Everyone appeared shocked at this unexpected clarification. Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio subconsciously repeated. "Just one match? You qualify by winning a single match?" Netero, still smiling, clarified further. "The winner passes immediately, while the loser advances to the next round. In other words, this time only one candidate will fail." After hearing this, the previously anxious candidates visibly relaxed. Initially, they'd believed only one candidate would pass. But now, knowing only one would fail changed everything. Clearly, anyone could see the difference. The second scenario was vastly preferable. Seeing that everyone was calmer now, Netero began to explain the rules carefully. "The rules for the fights are straightforward. As long as you don't violate the rules, you're free to use any means, even weapons, to secure a victory. However, if you kill your opponent, you'll be immediately disqualified, and all remaining candidates will automatically pass." Once he finished, a referee stepped forward and formally announced, "The final test officially begins now. First match, Hanzo vs. Gon." In the arena, Hanzo and Gon stood facing each other warily. Leo, observing the match as an examiner, yawned lightly. Feeling Menki's curious gaze, he explained casually, "Hanzo is several times stronger than Gon. But unfortunately, he's destined not to win this match." Menki looked puzzled and asked, "If Hanzo is that strong, why won't he win?" "Perhaps because of the rules," Satots calmly interjected, explaining clearly. "The key to victory here is making your opponent voluntarily surrender." "Exactly," Leo nodded. "Since the objective is forcing an opponent to admit defeat without endangering their life, and Gon isn't someone who easily gives up, Hanzo has no chance." Menki wasn't foolish. As a professional hunter, even a gourmet hunter, her sharpness shouldn't be underestimated. After hearing Leo's reasoning, she quickly recalled the specific rules of this exam. Killing an opponent results in immediate disqualification, all others automatically qualify. The condition for winning is forcing the opponent to voluntarily surrender. With these two rules, this exam's matches would significantly differ from ordinary combat. Just as Leo anticipated, Though Gon possessed extraordinary potential, it remained just that, potential. He hadn't yet converted it into true fighting strength. Therefore, the moment their match began, Gon immediately faced a one-sided beating from Hanzo. If killing were permitted, Gon would have died many times over already. But despite the harsh punishment, he stubbornly refused to admit defeat. Time passed slowly. Gon's blood stained the arena floor. Standing helplessly outside the arena, Leorio clenched his fists tightly, veins bulging, shouting furiously. "Stop it right now, or I'll kill you myself, you bastard." After his outburst, Leorio pointed at himself, yelling, "I'll fight you instead of Gon." But Hanzo merely glanced disdainfully at him, while the referee issued a stern warning to Leorio. Having no choice, Leorio reluctantly backed down, suppressing his rage. The cruel torture on the battlefield resumed. With precise ninja techniques, Hanzo swiftly robbed Gon of multiple senses, sight, hearing, and more. Yet still, Gon refused to admit defeat. Hanzo's patience gradually wore thin. Eventually, he crouched down next to Gon, saying mercilessly, "I'm going to break your arm now." "Hey hunters. Cult leader here. This is your reminder that breaks are important. Unless you're Killua, then you're just built different anyway." Onward. To infinity and beyond. Chapter 33. "I'm going to take your arm off." That sentence stunned many of the candidates. What followed was a wave of anger. No one expected Hanzo to go this far. However, with a sharp crack, the sickening sound of a bone breaking echoed through the exam hall. Gon's left arm had been snapped by Hanzo. His scream of pain reverberated throughout the air above the arena. Gulp. Puckle swallowed hard, muttering in disbelief, "No way. He really broke his arm." At this point, Leorio could no longer bear to watch. He clenched his fists and growled, "Kurapika, don't try to stop me. If that guy goes any further, sorry, Gon, but I just can't take it." "However, stop you? Me? Don't worry, I won't stop you at all." Kurapika's voice was sharp with rage, his crimson eyes blazing. Gon was his friend. There was no way Kurapika could watch this without emotion. But unlike Leorio and Kurapika, even as he was beaten to the brink of death and had his arm broken, Gon harbored no hatred toward Hanzo. The only thing in his heart was the stubborn refusal to give up. Crack. Hanzo flexed his fingers. Looking into Gon's defiant, unwavering gaze, Hanzo faltered. Why? Why wasn't there even a trace of hatred in Gon's eyes? He had tortured him for hours, suspended and beaten him, broken his arm, yet Gon didn't hate him. And under that pure, unwavering gaze, Hanzo finally retracted his weapon, turned to face referee Satots, and solemnly declared, "I forfeit." The words dropped like a bomb. Everyone was stunned again. But Hanzo turned back to Gon and offered an explanation. "I can't kill you, and I clearly won't get you to surrender. So I forfeit, and leave the results to the next round." Before Gon could react, Hanzo stepped behind him and knocked him unconscious with a swift chop. Then, turning back to Satots, he stood tall. Satots nodded and announced loudly, "Final test, first match, Gon wins." The result of the first match defied everyone's expectations, but it also made perfect sense. This exam wasn't about brute strength. The only way to win was by making your opponent say, "I give up." Gon, though battered and bloodied, endured. And because Hanzo couldn't make him surrender, he forfeited instead. Nearby, watching Hanzo return to the crowd, Menki leaned into Leo and curiously asked, "When did you figure out the nature of this test?" "The nature of it?" Leo smiled. "If I had to say, probably the moment the old man explained the rules. Of course, Leo couldn't admit it was because he'd already watched the anime. So he just gave a vague answer, no one would challenge it. Minky narrowed her eyes, clearly unamused by the dodge. She let go of Leo's arm with a snort. Humph. You say that like it's obvious. You smug little brother. But the exam wasn't over. It continued without pause. The second match began immediately after Hanzo and Gon left the stage. Match 2, Hisoka vs Kurapika. Facing a Kurapika who had not yet awakened his nen, Hisoka treated the battle as a mere amusement. After a few minutes of playful attacks, he grew bored and surrendered voluntarily, whispering a cryptic message to Kurapika about the spider. Match 3, Hanzo vs Pakal. The fight resembled the Gon match, except Pakal gave up almost immediately after a few punishing blows from Hanzo. Match 4, Shizuku vs Hisoka. Before the match began, Leo told Shizuku to surrender. She had only recently awakened her nen, and standing against someone like Hisoka, a deadly and unpredictable opponent, was pointless. Match 5, Shanark vs Leorio. The match began. In a flash, Shanark appeared in front of Leorio and kicked him to the ground. Leorio had initially thought to imitate Gon, refusing to give in no matter what. But innocent, relentless Shanark wasn't the type to hold back. He continued his assault. Seeing that Shanark might actually kill him, Leorio panicked and surrendered. Match 6, Shizuku vs Pakal. Shizuku, having been frustrated by her prior forfeit, saw this as her opportunity. Fueled by envy after witnessing Shanark's dominance, she mimicked his methods and overwhelmed Pakal, forcing him to surrender. Match 7, Leorio vs Killua. At the start of the match, Killua voluntarily forfeited. His stated reason, he wanted to go last and give Leorio a chance to pass. Match 8, Illumi, Jitarakar, vs Killua. As night fell, the 8th match began. Illumi gave the audience a disturbing display of manipulation and intimidation. With a chilling psychological assault, Killua broke under pressure and forfeited. Match 9, Killua vs Pakal. But when Killua returned to the arena, he murdered his opponent instantly, ripping out his heart in a single move. Because he killed an opponent, Killua was disqualified from the Hunter exam. And so, the results of the 287th Hunter exam were finalized. Leo, Shanark, Shizuku, Hisoka, Illumi, Hanzo, Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio, 9 candidates successfully passed and became licensed hunters. The exam was over. Chairman Netero soon announced that a celebratory banquet would be held that evening. Upon hearing this, everyone left the hall with joy to prepare their outfits for the event. As Leo left with the others, Shanark and Shizuku were whisked away by Mankey to pick out dresses. Left alone, Leo wandered the hotel, passing time while waiting. But then, a figure appeared, blocking his path. Leo smirked with interest and greeted him first. "Yo Hisoka. Now, what brings you here?" Chapter 34. The Invitation and the Duel. Hisoka's appearance. It was earlier than Leo had expected. At the very least, he thought Hisoka would wait a few more days before making his move. Hearing Leo's question, Hisoka smiled. It was a wide, unnerving grin. There was a twisted edge to his laughter, sharp, eerie, and unsettling. Hee. You've been training with Chairman Netero for half a month, haven't you? You've awakened your nen, right? How far have you come? The 4 major principles? The advanced techniques? Have you developed your Hatsu yet? It doesn't matter at all. Let's fight. I want to fight you. Just thinking about how Leo had trained with Netero for half a month, Hisoka trembled with excitement. So much so, he was practically trembling with anticipation. Right now, All he wanted was a satisfying duel with Leo. But Leo tilted his head slightly, lips curling into a smirk. A duel? Sure. But what are you offering in return? Offering? HxH blinked. Then, his grin twisted again, and he laughed darkly, covering his mouth with one hand. A price, huh? Hee. Interesting. Very interesting. Alright, if you want a price, then take this. If I lose, my money, my abilities, my body, everything I have is yours. Leo's eyes gleamed with amusement. Everything? Fine. I accept. But the duel will happen tomorrow afternoon. At that moment, a familiar system notification chimed in Leo's mind. Ding. Mission triggered, duel objective, defeat HxH in a one-on-one battle reward, 1 XP rank draw ticket. Tomorrow afternoon? HxH's face darkened. His voice dropped into a dangerous tone. Why tomorrow? I'd rather fight now. Leo chuckled. Because I'm still waiting for the girls to finish picking their dresses. If I leave now, they'll be disappointed. HxH stared at Leo, searching his expression for mockery or teasing. But Leo's face was completely sincere. He truly looked like someone waiting patiently for Shanark, Shizuku, and Menki to finish their wardrobe selection. After a long pause, HxH placed one hand across his face, trying to contain his explosive bloodlust. Eventually, the intensity in his eyes dimmed slightly, but his gaze never left Leo. Fine. I'll wait right here until tomorrow afternoon. But if you don't show, I'll find you. And I'll kill you. His voice was cold, deathly serious. His bloodlust slithered out like a dark aura, vile and oppressive. Yet Leo just smiled, unaffected. Don't worry. Tomorrow afternoon, I'll let you taste defeat. Those bold words made HxH's grin widen again. There was no anger, only delight. He didn't see Leo as arrogant. He was thrilled to receive such a confident reply. Hee. Ah, delicious little fruit. I'll be waiting for you. I'm waiting for that sweet, sweet defeat. With a chilling laugh and murmured nonsense, HxH turned and walked away. All signs of his previous madness had completely vanished. At the same time, as Leo watched him disappear into the distance, his smirk faded, and he muttered to himself. HxH's personality isn't really suited for natural disaster. That complicates things. Should I really consider inviting him to the team? Truth be told, ever since the natural disaster team had been formed, Leo had started planning the ideal members he'd want to recruit. Menki, for one, had both excellent culinary skills and solid talent as a hunter. She could be developed into a support-type member. Then there were others to consider. HxH, Hanzo, and Kurapika. HxH's strength was undeniable. If added to natural disaster, he'd be an elite fighter. But his unpredictable and chaotic nature was a serious problem. If he joined, he'd probably cause trouble every single day. That made Leo hesitant. Then there was Hanzo, a skilled fighter whose rigorous training since childhood gave him solid fundamentals. If someone like Leo could help him develop his Nen ability, his growth could skyrocket. And finally, Kurapika. Although he'd once been terrified of Leo, thinking they came from completely different worlds, after leaving the Zoldyck estate, he'd stepped willingly into the darkness of the underworld. And if Kurapika had already made that choice, then why couldn't he join natural disaster, too? Thinking about all this, Leo turned to look into the distance. Shanark, Shizuku, and Menki were walking toward him, dressed in formal attire. Leo murmured, "Before I invite anyone new, I need to focus on training the 3 girls and improving our core strength. Otherwise, It'd be pretty embarrassing if the newcomers outshined us. Suddenly, all three girls approaching him shivered in sync, feeling an eerie chill crawl up their spines. It was as if something terrifying was about to happen. Chapter 35. Night fell. The celebratory banquet officially began. The Hunter exam had started on January 7th and ended on January 23rd, a total of 16 grueling days, though it had only been a little over 2 weeks. For the candidates, examiners, and association staff alike, it felt like a drawn-out battle of mind and body. Now, with the exam over, everyone finally relaxed, allowing themselves to enjoy the feast in peace. At that moment, Leo, Shanark, and Shizuku entered the banquet hall. Their arrival instantly drew attention, especially from the candidates' table. Hanzo grumbled, "TCH. That Leo guy has girls with him no matter where he goes." Leorio muttered, "Ugh. I could never get along with Shanark's personality." Same with Shizuku. Kurapika chimed in thoughtfully, "Now that you mention it, that examiner Menki's personality also seems a bit." He trailed off. He suddenly felt a sharp, burning gaze on him. Turning his head, Kurapika locked eyes with Menki, who was glaring at him from a nearby table. Kurapika. No way. He wasn't gossiping. He had just casually responded after hearing Leorio's complaints about Shanark and Shizuku. That's all. He quickly lowered his head in shame. Only after Menki looked away did he dare to breathe again. At that moment, Menki noticed Leo, Shanark, and Shizuku entering. Her eyes lit up, and clearly tipsy, she stood up and waved. "Leo, Shanark, Shizuku, over here tilde." Hearing her, Shizuku glanced at Leo. "It's fine. Everyone's invited. Let's go," Leo said, taking the lead. As they reached Menki's table, they realized it was filled with examiners. Buara was scarfing down roast meat, Lipo snacked on sweets, and Satots calmly sipped coffee while observing everyone. But the most eye-catching of them all was Menki. She wore a beige formal gown, her pale cheeks tinged pink from the alcohol. She stumbled toward Leo, then suddenly slung her arms around Shanark and Shizuku's shoulders and declared drunkenly, "Shanark, Shizuku, sit next to me. Let this stinky little brother sit alone and see how it feels to be left out." The two girls looked at Leo. Leo smiled helplessly and gestured for them to go along. He had just solidified his relationship with Menki earlier that day, then spent the afternoon with Shanark and Shizuku. It did seem a little unfair. But they were all his girls, he couldn't favor one over the others. At that moment, Menki held Shanark on her left and Shizuku on her right. She turned her dazed eyes toward Leo, completely forgetting her earlier rant, and murmured dreamily, "Leo, you stinky little brother. You don't understand, I love you so much that every time I see you, I just wanna kiss you." Leo. Off to the side. Buara choked on his jelly hearing Menki's overly affectionate outburst and coughed until his face turned red. Eventually recovering, he looked at Menki with alarm. "She's terrifying. Once Menki gets drunk, her true colors come out." Then he glanced at Leo with sympathy. "Leo. You've got your hands full." Leo. Even Netero, seated nearby, couldn't hold back his laughter. He nudged Leo playfully and teased, "Little Leo. I didn't expect you to be so charismatic. Not only did you win over Menki, but you're also accompanied by two exceptional young ladies. If you ask me, you could make a fine romantic hunter. Plenty of clients would line up for your advice." But what no one knew was that, as he looked at Leo, surrounded by beautiful women, Netero felt a rare sense of relief. Leo's abnormal talent was already enough to place him above 99.99% of NEN users worldwide. Even Netero himself couldn't be certain whether he could still suppress Leo's power. To this point, Leo had talent, potential, and the resolve to transform both into terrifying strength. He was a walking natural disaster. If left unchecked, Leo was a bomb that could explode at any moment, one powerful enough to reshape the entire world. And now, Netero saw Menki, Shanark, and Shizuku as the valves to contain that bomb. Thinking that, Netero's gaze softened, tinged with something that resembled guilt. "I'm sorry, Menki, Shanark, Shizuku. But this is for the good of the world." Leo, of course, had no idea what Netero was thinking. But even if he had known, he would have laughed it off as crazy old man paranoia. He had only two goals in this world. 1. Grow stronger. 2. Enjoy life. Now that he'd been reincarnated into this world, if he didn't indulge in its beauties, wouldn't that be a waste? Besides, even if he did want to do something drastic, would Menki, Shanark, or Shizuku really try to stop him? Time passed. Before anyone realized it, the banquet had come to an end. Having been thoroughly drunk by Menki, Shanark and Shizuku were barely standing. Leo had no choice but to escort all three women back to his room. They were completely intoxicated. Soft, drowsy, and flushed like ripe apples. Leo looked at the three of them and thought with a grin. Even if I had them 3 times a day, I wouldn't get tired of them. So, before calling it a night, Leo tasted each of his red apples 3 times, thoroughly savoring the sweetness. Only when he was fully satisfied did he finally fall into a deep, restful sleep. Chapter 36. The next day, Leo and the others attended the Hunter Association's orientation lecture. The venue resembled a large conference room, podium up front, rows of seats in the back. Seating was open. Leo, Shanark, and Shizuku naturally sat together. The rest of the new hunters chose their spots freely. Not long after, Netero entered the room and stepped up to the podium. He glanced across the group of newly licensed hunters and chuckled warmly. "Ho ho ho! There are quite a lot of you this year. A truly bountiful harvest." At the same time, Beans and a group of examiners filed in behind Netero. Beans, overhearing Netero's remark, nodded in agreement. "That's right. It's rare, maybe once in a decade, that this many candidates pass at once." Netero nodded knowingly. As chairman of the Hunter Association, he fully understood how significant this was. But his eyes scanned the room. And when he noticed a certain someone missing, his brow lifted. "Has Gon not regained consciousness yet?" Hearing the question, Beans pulled out his phone, checked his messages, and replied. According to Examiner Satotz's report, candidate number 407, Mr. Gon Freaks, has woken up and is on his way. Netero nodded casually in acknowledgement. But his gaze then shifted to Hanzo, making the ninja instinctively flinch. "Crap. Is the chairman blaming me for going too far yesterday?" Fortunately, Netero's gaze lingered only a second before it moved on. When it landed on Leo, flanked on either side by Shanark and Shizuku, a mischievous grin tugged at his lips. "Ho ho ho. Little Leo. You should learn some restraint. If you keep enjoying yourself like this, your body might give out." His teasing tone left many candidates bewildered. It was obvious. Leo's relationship with the association chairman was far more personal than a normal hunter's. In fact, it almost feels like a conversation between a grandfather and his mischievous grandson. Some thought subconsciously. Leo rolled his eyes and shot Netero a smirk. "Old man, unlike you, I'm 17, I'm in my prime. Don't worry about my stamina." Netero simply laughed again, not the least bit offended. But just then, bam! The rear doors slammed open, rattling on their hinges. Everyone turned. "Gon. Are you okay?" Are you feeling better? Leorio and Kurapika shouted in unison. Sure enough, it was gone. He entered the room with a stormy expression, ignoring everyone as his eyes locked onto Illumi. Without hesitation, he walked directly toward him, stopped beside him, and said firmly, "Apologize. You need to apologize to Killua." Illumi blinked. Apologize? For what? Gon's expression darkened. Before anyone could stop him, he grabbed Illumi's arm, yanked him from his seat, and flipped him. Illumi was genuinely caught off guard. Though not among the world's most powerful Nen users, he was certainly no slouch. To be taken by surprise by a boy who hadn't even awakened Nen. Unthinkable. Gon's anger flared. You don't deserve to call yourself Killua's brother. Illumi replied flatly, does one need qualifications to be a brother? That sentence pushed Gon over the edge. His grip tightened, his fingers pressing into Illumi's arm. Crack. Crack. His strength was startling for someone without Nen. Then if being a brother doesn't need qualifications, neither does being a friend, Gon shouted. You don't have to apologize. Just take me to see Killua. Meanwhile, Minky had slipped in and taken a seat next to Leo. She leaned toward him and whispered slyly. Don't you think Gon and Killua are a bit too close? You think maybe their relationship is, you know. She clasped her hands together suggestively, beaming with excitement. Though she hadn't said it outright. Everyone around knew exactly what she meant. Leo. He was stunned. He never imagined Menki would be this kind of person. Just last night, when the four of them were enjoying apples, she hadn't shown any of this energy. A pure friendship between boys. How had it turned so twisted in her mind? And now, as Menki eagerly analyzed Gon and Killua's relationship, comparing personalities and dynamics, Shanark and Shizuku began listening closely. Leo glanced at the girls. Their cheeks were quietly flushed. He could almost hear a phantom train rushing by, screaming, "Dirty! Dirty! Dirty!" Elsewhere in the room, the conflict between Gon and Illumi was finally diffused by Netero's intervention. After restoring order, Beans took the podium and began explaining the privileges of a hunter license. Everyone, this is your hunter license. With this card, civilians can access 99% of countries and 75% of regions without restriction. He continued with a gentle smile. Additionally, you'll have free access to 95% of the world's public facilities. And you'll receive VIP-level benefits at banks, research institutions, and more. Time passed. And with it, the explanation of the license's privileges came to an end. In the afternoon, the lecture concluded. The candidates left the room, chatting among themselves. Minky whisked away Shanark and Shizuku again, eager to continue her Gon x Killua theory crafting. However, as Leo stepped into the hallway, he paused. He could feel a presence following behind him. Smirking, he turned and said casually, "No point in hiding now. You're wasting your time." Then, a sharper tone. "Isn't that right, Hisoka?" Sure enough. Hisoka stepped forward from the shadows, his smile unhinged and eyes burning with anticipation. "Of course. I've waited a full day and night for this. Leo. Let's fight." Chapter 37. Boom. The moment the sound echoed, a dark, cold, fanatical energy erupted from Hisoka. It was pure malice. The kind of madness he'd been suppressing for over a day. Sharingan Leo's pupils turned scarlet as spiritual energy surged into his eyes. 3 Tomoe spun in formation. With the Sharingan active, he could clearly trace the swirling flow of Hisoka's aura. Suddenly, Hisoka asked, with interest, "Leo, are you a transmuter or a specialist?" As an experienced Nen user, HxH had developed a personal system for categorizing abilities based on personality. Enhancement, simple-minded, direct. Transmutation, capricious, deceptive. Emission, impulsive, impatient, irritable. Manipulation, likes control, rational. Conjuration, neurotic. Specialization, unique, independent, charismatic. To him, Leo wasn't simple or unstable, nor particularly neurotic. That narrowed it down. He figured Leo could only be a transmuter or specialist. But he was wrong. Leo smirked. Nope. I'm an emitter. Surprised? HxH paused, eyes narrowing. You're lying. Leo shrugged, unconcerned. Then I'm lying. It's just a category. Doesn't matter, does it? But that casual answer only confirmed HxH's mistake. His instincts screamed that Leo wasn't an emitter. Yet now he had doubts. Oh my. So I guessed wrong. What a shame. But of course, it wasn't a shame at all. Knowing Leo was an emitter gave HxH a tactical advantage. Emitters excel at mid to long-range attacks. Therefore, closing the distance could tip the scales. But the release category borders the enhancement and manipulation types. So their abilities can sometimes be flexible, and incomplete assumptions could be fatal. In combat, the unknown is always the deadliest factor. And so, HxH subtly adjusted his aura. 30% of his nen flowed into his hands. Swish, 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 swish. 4 playing cards shot toward Leo, charged with nen. Each card was linked to HxH's fingertips by a faint pink aura. Bungee gum, a property of his transmuted aura that combined elasticity and adhesiveness. Leo's eyes tracked them. The tomoe of his Sharingan spun. Everything slowed. The path of each card was instantly visible to him. He took 2 relaxed steps, like a stroll in the park, and slipped between the cards with flawless precision. Clack. 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 The cards embedded harmlessly into the wall behind him. Missed. But HxH wasn't disappointed. On the contrary, his face twisted in delighted madness. Ah! Wonderful. To slip between the gaps of 4 simultaneously fired cards. Your perception is exceptional. As a master of cards, HxH could tell Leo had dodged not through brute speed or aura-enhanced reflexes, but through sheer observation. HxH's breath quickened. That kind of natural instinct made him even more excited. Leo ignored him. His gaze shifted. He sensed a group of people quickly approaching. Unwanted interference. This fight wasn't just personal, it was also a mission. Winning meant earning a B rank draw reward from the system. He wasn't about to let that slip away. Turning back to HxH, Leo called out. HxH. Let's take this somewhere else. No, I mean, let's duel properly. Although it was phrased like a question, his tone left no room for argument. Another location? HxH echoed. Ha, what? But before he could finish, Leo had already vanished in a flash of blue lightning. Zap. A split second later, he reappeared directly in front of HxH. Dash. HxH's eyes went wide. When did he move? How did he cross that distance so fast? His brain barely had time to process it. But his body reacted on instinct. A surge of nen instantly burst outward, coating his body. Ken, the advanced application of Ten and Ren. It focused reinforced aura across the entire body to enhance both offense and defense. It was the fastest, and only, defense he had. But Leo smiled. A subtle smirk appeared on his lips. Too naive. You think Ken can block a lightning-based nen attack? You're overestimating yourself. Because of its nature, the Thunder Fruit's power is inherently penetrating. During his half-month of training, Leo had discovered that his lightning could pierce through 50% of standard aura defenses. Meaning, If Leo launched a lightning attack with a base power of 100, even if the opponent used Nen to defend, at least 50% of that attack would still go through. And that's assuming he wasn't enhancing it with Nen. If Leo combined his Nen with the Thunder Fruit's power, then HxH, even using Ken, would suffer a double-layered hit. Aura-infused lightning plus penetrating elemental force. Simply put, if HxH couldn't block both the fruit and Nen at once, he was about to get wrecked. Chapter 38. At this moment, Leo stood before HxH, who had just activated Ken to defend himself. But instead of striking immediately, Leo grabbed HxH by the collar. ZZZZT, boom. Electricity surged violently across Leo's body. With a loud crack, he exploded into a streak of thunder and shot skyward. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3 seconds. The thunder came crashing down from the sky, forming a silhouette midair. When Leo's figure finally rematerialized, he hurled HxH into the sand, then stood upright, eyes alert, scanning the horizon. Where are we? The landscape had changed. An endless desert stretched in all directions. Even HxH, who had seen many strange Hatsu, was stunned for a moment. He remembered seeing this same desert from the airship the previous day. But back then, it had taken the airship 3 full hours to fly across it. Just now, Leo had brought him here. In 3 seconds? Gulp. Even someone like HxH couldn't help but feel a chill. A feat like that defied logic. But instead of fear, he trembled with excitement. HNN. Ha, ha. The speed of lightning. Fascinating. His body shook from the thrill, lips stretched in a deranged grin. And then, he attacked. Still high on adrenaline, HxH surged forward, holding 2 playing cards enhanced with aura. Joe, a Nen application technique that reinforces objects by infusing them with aura. These cards, hardened by HxH's Nen, were sharp enough to slice clean through bone. 2 arcs of shimmering steel curved through the air. But Leo? Leo didn't flinch. He watched HxH calmly, a trace of amusement in his gaze. You think I'll let you get close just because you assume I rely only on ranged attacks? Too bad for you. I don't play fair. After eating the thunder fruit, Leo had adjusted his fighting style to emphasize long-range combat. But that didn't mean his close quarters capabilities were any weaker. Far from it. Suddenly, crack. A burst of electricity ignited in Leo's hair. In an instant, he vanished again, lightning trailing behind him. And then, he appeared directly in front of HxH. ZZZZT. ZZZZT. His right hand pulsed with lightning, palm open, fingers crackling with energy. A fierce, divine aura burst outward, like thunder given form. Here it comes. HxH's pupils contracted in alarm. He whipped a card through the air. Swoosh. It left a sharp arc as it flew toward Leo, charged with dense aura. At the same time, with a flick of both wrists, several more cards flew out from concealed spots on his body. Each was laced with bungee gum. HxH had reacted immediately, his instincts sharp as ever. But Leo? Leo smiled. This was someone who had fought Netero to a draw. These tricks weren't enough. With a flick of his arm, Leo brought down a lightning-charged handblade. Crash! The sheer force shredded through every card in its path. The charged blade obliterated the projectiles like paper. HxH's eyes widened. All of them. Each card had been reinforced with 40% of his aura. And yet, they were obliterated as if they had no aura at all. Leo's hand didn't stop there. It continued, arcing toward HxH's neck. HxH's pupils dilated in terror. Die. 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 His instincts screamed. Every hair on his body stood on end. And then, splat. A severed arm hit the sand. Blood sprayed in arcs, staining the desert floor a deep crimson. GHHH, ha. Ha. Hisaka panted, chest rising and falling. His eyes were bloodshot. But he was grinning. White. Insane. I almost died. If I hadn't used bungee gum to stick to that last card, and yanked myself back, I'd be dead right now. Despite being on the brink of death, he wasn't afraid. He was ecstatic. Using his remaining hand, he tugged at his face, stretching his skin grotesquely. Ah! Wonderful! That speed, so fast that even N couldn't react. Leo. You're incredible. But Leo. Leo simply yawned. Bored now. You want to keep going? If we do, next time you lose something, it won't just be an arm. Hisaka paused. He looked at Leo again. That calm expression. That overwhelming speed. That power. He's too fast to counter. And the way his lightning attacks ignore aura defense. In theory, Hisaka's fighting style worked like this. Use bungee gum to attach to an opponent or the environment. Use its elasticity to create surprise angles or retreat routes. Create traps using hidden aura. But here, in this barren desert, there was nothing to cling to. Worse, the sand was too unstable for traps, and any bungee gum he'd attached was melting under Leo's lightning heat. He had laid a trap. Bungee gum, hidden within, planted beneath the sand. But it was no use. It had liquefied under the intense heat of Leo's electric aura. Such a waste. Hisaka sighed. The lightning, the terrain. They both counter me. Too boring. I forfeit. Chapter 39. I give up. Hisaka pressed one hand against the stump of his severed arm. Using bungee gum, he quickly sealed the wound to minimize blood loss. But unlike usual, he didn't feel his typical post-battle thrill. Instead, he felt nauseated. To be honest, before the fight, Hisaka had already mentally prepared for how strong Leo might be. He'd assumed Leo had learned Nen applications, maybe even some advanced techniques. But even after accounting for that, he still underestimated him. Leo's movements were lightning fast, literally, and beyond any counter Hisaka could mount. With reluctance in his voice, Hisaka asked, "You control lightning. Is that Nen?" Leo shook his head calmly. "No. It's a devil fruit power," he thought. But there was no point explaining that here. No one in this world would understand anyway. Hisaka's eyes narrowed slightly. Not Nen. His pride stung. He was a master of Nen, skilled in deception, prediction, control. But in this battle, he never even got a chance to show it. 2 attacks. That's all it took before he was forced to admit defeat. To break it down. First, Leo had pulled him into the middle of a desert, a terrain that completely neutralized Hisaka's strategic strengths. With nothing solid to anchor bungee gum to, half of his tricks were already disabled. Second, Leo had integrated his Nen with the power of the Thunder Fruit and the Sharingan. The Thunder Fruit gave him lightning speed movement, electromagnetic power, and devastating heat-based attacks. And Leo had refined that further. He used high-temperature lightning and combined it with condensation, to channel Nen into it, creating heat-infused aura. That meant any attempt by Hisaka to stick bungee gum to Leo or the ground was useless. The heat simply melted it on contact. So, bungee gum? Useless. Traps hidden within? Useless. Environmental leverage? Gone. All Hisaka had left was raw physical combat. But Leo's lightning speed made even that suicidal. He couldn't land a single hit. He couldn't defend either. So after 2 failed exchanges and a lost arm, Hisaka surrendered. Ding. System notification. White check mark emoji, mission complete, Duel with HxH. Present emoji, reward, B rank card draw, claimed successfully. Back in the desert. HxH let out a low chuckle. Still bleeding, still smiling. So, Leo. What are you going to do with me? He remembered the terms of the duel. The loser would surrender everything, money, ability, even their body. And HxH was no coward. If Leo demanded his life, he'd offer it without hesitation. But Leo just looked at him with a smirk of mild contempt. You lost, so you'll be my sparring partner for a month. With that, Leo stepped forward. Ignoring HxH's stunned expression, he grabbed him by the collar again. Zzzzzt, boom. A surge of electricity crackled from Leo's body. And just like before, he vanished, lightning arcing into the sky. He returned HxH to the hotel. Behind them, the desert winds howled, erasing the blood-soaked sand. All that remained was silence. Back at the final test venue. After telling HxH he'd be his sparring partner tomorrow, Leo left without another word. But HxH, still holding his wounded arm, watched Leo's back disappear. Then slowly, he began to laugh. Ah, those cold eyes. So perfect. I want to destroy you so badly right now. His twisted laughter echoed through the corridor. His body shook with perverse joy. He arched his back, face contorted with euphoria, squinting until only a sliver of his golden pupils remained. Later that day, per the hunter exam's usual procedure, after learning the 10 commandments of hunters, candidates typically attend a farewell banquet that evening, followed by an optional departure the next morning. But this year, things were different. A celebration had already been held the night before. Many candidates, homesick and fatigued, requested to leave early. So, after reviewing the situation, the exam committee decided the farewell banquet would be cancelled. Leo, meanwhile, was looking for Hanzo. But when he found his room, it was empty. Leo. The little red ninja ran off already? He sighed, then shifted targets. Kurapika. This time, he asked the hotel staff directly. Kurapika hadn't left yet, he was still in his room. So Leo made his way over. He raised his hand, knocked once. And when the door opened. Ah, it's Leo. Gon stood in the doorway, eyes lighting up. Chapter 40. Leo's sudden appearance stunned the 3 people in the room. After all, since their parting at the Lost Melody wetlands, this was the first time Leo had come to them on his own initiative. So, Gon lit up and called out excitedly, Leo. Come in, come in. Leorio, sensing an opportunity, quickly followed up with an overly friendly smile. Yeah. Leo, come on in, I actually have something I've been meaning to ask you. Only Kurapika's reaction was different. As Leo entered, Kurapika narrowed his eyes, trying to piece together the reason for his visit. Could it be because I was gossiping about Menki yesterday? Did Leo find out somehow? But aside from that, he couldn't figure it out. Unless, is the association trying to form new teams? Then, Leo spoke, cutting through the tension. My reason for coming here is simple, I want to invite Kurapika to join my team. What? All 3 of them widened their eyes in shock. Especially Gon and Leorio. After all, among the 3, Kurapika had always been the least trusting of Leo. And yet, Leo had come to invite him? It was so sudden, so unexpected, that neither of them could form a proper reaction. They glanced at each other, then both blurted out at the same time. You're inviting Kurapika to join your team? Leo nodded, calm and serious. Yes. That's exactly why I'm here. Earlier that day during the Hunter lecture, Beans had explained the 3 general paths for professional hunters. Work alone. Create your own team. Join a team led by someone else. So naturally, the 3 of them were already familiar with the concept. Still, Kurapika couldn't help but question the offer. Why me? No, what I mean is, why did you come to me? Despite his preference to work in a group rather than alone, Kurapika had never considered this kind of proposal. He had spent years working independently, and he understood better than anyone how limited one person's strength could be. If he could join a team, especially one with resources, he could gain the means to pursue what mattered most. Revenge. Justice. The Scarlet Eyes. Leo met Kurapika's gaze and smiled faintly. Because of the Phantom Troop. At those words, Kurapika's eyes flashed bright red. But before he could speak, Leo continued. I like that about you. It's your hatred for the troop. That burning drive, under the right conditions, it'll push you to grow faster than anyone else. Kurapika slowly calmed himself. But his mind was racing. What did Leo mean by conditions? What did he really want? Meanwhile, Gon and Leorio were still trying to process everything. Before they could even speak, Kurapika raised his head. He didn't realize it, but his eyes were still glowing red. His voice was low, hoarse, but resolute. Rapid growth. Is it because of that power of yours, the lightning? Leorio and Gon both perked up. Leo's lightning was something they'd witnessed firsthand, raw, deadly, and awe-inspiring. Whoa, are you talking about when Leo used lightning on those chimera apes and candidates? Gon asked. Yeah, Leorio added. That was crazy. Are you saying Kurapika can do that too? Leo shook his head slowly. No. That's not the same power. The disappointment on their faces was immediate. But when Leo paused and added one more word, their eyes lit up again. But Gon leaned in. But Leorio coughed and waved his hands. Come on, Leo, don't keep us in suspense. Kurapika stayed silent, but his eyes never left Leo's. He wasn't as calm as he seemed. Leo chuckled quietly. His laughter was soft, but it struck like thunder. You 3. You really think that just having a hunter license makes you a real hunter? The words hit hard. Gon and Leorio stared, puzzled. Huh? Didn't we pass the exam? Wait. Is there some kind of secret final test? Kurapika's eyes narrowed. That phrase, a hidden test, sounded familiar. Suddenly, the memory of Netero jumping off the airship flashed in his mind. That moment had never sat right with him. No ordinary man could survive a stunt like that. Gulp. Kurapika swallowed. Then it clicked. Leo's conditions. They might be connected to something the association itself had set up. A secret path. A trial beyond the exam. Kurapika lifted his eyes again. If I can pass that test, if I can meet those conditions, then I can avenge my clan. Can't I? Chapter 41. The invitation ends, the mission begins. Leo left Kurapika's room without hesitation. After dropping words that left Gon and Leorio completely baffled, he turned and exited. The 2 new hunters stood there, staring at the door in stunned silence. Meanwhile, across from them sat the Avenger, Kurapika, his heart now quietly stirring with a dangerous resolve. A long silence followed. Finally, Gon broke it with a cheerful voice and a bright smile. Kurapika, if Leo really has a way to help you get stronger, then you can't let that chance slip away. Among the 3 of them, Gon was the one most familiar with Leo. Even when Dongba had mentioned offhandedly that Candidate 373 is just another rookie, Gon had instinctively felt drawn to Leo, something about him just felt trustworthy. And now, Leo had extended a personal invitation to Kurapika, with the promise of power. Of course Gon was happy for him. Leorio quickly snapped out of his own daze, walked up to Kurapika, and patted him on the shoulder. He's right. We know how strong Leo is. If he's asking you to join his team, that means he's serious about helping you grow stronger. Damn it, why can't I ever catch a break? I want to get stronger too. And I want girls around me too. Wait, no, I mean, strength. I meant strength. Kurapika listened silently to their support. His red eyes, which had been blazing with intensity, gradually softened. He looked at the two of them, his closest friends. After the massacre of the Korta clan, he had wandered the world alone for years. He never thought he'd find something like this again. True companionship. Real friends. Maybe joining Leo's team wasn't such a bad idea after all. He'd gained strength. And with that strength, he could finally exact his revenge. Kurapika smiled. It was the most relaxed smile he'd shown in weeks. I know what I'm going to do. As soon as we're cleared to leave the exam venue, I'll go find Leo. Yes. That was his path now. To walk forward, to gain power, and to face the phantom troop. Seeing Kurapika's smile, Gon and Leorio both grinned too. But Gon's smile carried a quiet relief. That's good, he thought. At least now Kurapika won't be distracted. But Leorio. Gon's eyes flickered. Before Leo had shown up, he was about to suggest that the three of them go together to visit Killua at his home. Gon had made up his mind. No matter what, he was going to bring Killua back. And he knew that if he had asked, Kurapika and Leorio would have gone with him without question. But that wasn't their burden to carry. This was his mission, his responsibility. So Leo's appearance, and Kurapika's new direction, lifted a weight off Gon's shoulders. Elsewhere. After leaving Kurapika's room, Leo went straight to Netero's office. He walked through the garden and noticed, from the traces of aura, that several others were inside. He knocked twice. Knock, knock. Come in. Netero's voice rang out. Leo pushed the door open. Inside, aside from Netero, sat Beans, Menki, Saucy, Buara, and Lipo. Yo tilde, Leo greeted casually, lifting his hand. Netero chuckled when he saw him. Ho ho ho, little Leo, you came at just the right time. I was just thinking of assigning a task to your natural disaster team. Leo paused mid-step. He glanced at Netero, one brow raised. I don't remember telling you the name of my team, old man. Netero only smiled, then shifted his gaze to Menki. Leo followed his eyes, and instantly understood. Menki looked away innocently, then stuck out her tongue. Aya tilde. Sorry? Leo sighed. Forget it. It's not like I planned to keep it secret anyway. He had intended to officially register, natural disaster, with the association soon anyway. If anything, Menki informing Netero early just saved him a step. So, old man, Leo said, walking past the line of examiners and dropping himself onto the couch, what do you need? He poured himself some tea from the nearby set and took a slow sip. Ah. Your tea is always top-notch. Saucy and Lipo raised their eyebrows slightly at Leo's informality, but said nothing. They weren't blind. Leo wasn't just any hunter. He was Netero's personal disciple. And judging by the way the two of them interacted, their bond was far closer than any master-student formality. Netero didn't seem to mind Leo's attitude at all. If anything, he seemed pleased. As if Leo's casualness was a sign of trust. Ho 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 tilde, Netero chuckled again. You really don't treat me like an outsider, do you? He paused a moment, then continued. 3 months from now, the Sky Arena is hosting an underground martial arts tournament. The Shingen-ryu School has received a formal invitation. I want you to represent Shingen-ryu in that competition. Leo blinked. Wait, me? Netaro nodded. And before the tournament starts, Shingen-ryu will provide full support, equipment, venues, and 3 months of intensive weapons-based training. Chapter 42. Netaro's words hung in the air. Leo stayed silent for a few seconds, then finally looked up at him and teased. Old man, you're using association resources for personal gain that blatantly? Leo had only just formed the natural disaster team. He was already planning to find a facility to run their intensive training. But before he could even act on it, Netaro handed him the Sky Arena tournament, and access to exclusive facilities. There was no way this wasn't deliberate. While pulling strings so openly, I gotta say, very presidential of you, Leo chuckled. Netaro laughed without an ounce of shame. With his status and power, who in the association could even object? More importantly, Netaro casually picked his ear with his pinky, flicked out some wax, and replied with a grin. I founded Shingen-ryu, remember? I can pick whoever I want to represent it. Who's going to argue? And the moment he said it, boom! The air shifted. A heavy, suffocating aura burst from Netaro like a collapsing mountain. So intense that the oxygen in the room felt thinner. Times 4. Sasi, Menki, Buara, and Lipo all winced at once. The weight of Netaro's nen bore down like a lead hammer. This was the aura of the strongest man in the world, and he wasn't even trying to kill them. But the very next moment, boom! An even more terrifying surge of aura erupted from Leo, flooding the room. He sneered. Who dares complain? If anyone has a problem with it, they're welcome to challenge me for the spot. Beat me, and I'll step down. His voice was calm, but filled with such immense pressure that it made the air scream. Sasi, Buara, and Lipo nearly collapsed. Their legs shook beneath them as they struggled to remain upright. Only Menki stood unaffected, shielded by Leo's own aura, which gently pushed back Netaro's earlier pressure. Seeing her comrades buckle under the sheer force, Menki panicked and shouted. Leo! That's enough. Just like that, the two opposing auras vanished at once, leaving the room eerily quiet. All right. Settle down, Menki, Netaro said with a wave of his hand. Leo calmly sipped his tea again, as if nothing had happened. The room, however, was still filled with silent gasps as the others recovered. Sasi, Buara, and Lipo were visibly shaken. Netaro was a monster, that they all knew. But Leo's aura had just surpassed Netaro's, even for a moment. It didn't feel real. Lipo, in particular, was stunned. A monster? Just like one of the Zodiacs? No. He's beyond even that. This kid. He might be on the same level as the chairman himself. Menki didn't say a word. She just glared at Leo, marched over, and snatched the teacup right out of his hand. Netaro chuckled at the exchange. Just then, Beans spoke up, tactfully redirecting the conversation. Chairman, the airship is prepped and ready. Shall we return to the association now? Netaro stroked his beard. Let's wait until all the examinees have departed. Then we'll head back together. Naturally, we included everyone in the room. And in 3 months, the natural disaster team would represent Shingen-ryu in the Sky Arena tournament. That night, an airship slowly lifted into the sky. Inside Leo's private cabin. Starting tomorrow, Leo said, reclining between Shanark and Shizuku, Hisako will be staying with us for a month as a sparring partner. And I've officially invited Kurapika to join, Natural Disaster. Just so you both know. A guy, huh? Shizuku raised a brow. I figured all our recruits would be women. Shanark's cheeks were faintly flushed, but his tone was steady. "I don't mind. I'll follow your lead." Leo smirked. Their reactions didn't bother him. He simply continued. "In 3 months, we'll be fighting in the Sky Arena tournament on behalf of Shingen Ryu. We'll be given access to their training grounds and support. But we're not just showing up, we're going to dominate. So starting tomorrow, we're going all in. Shizuku, I'm assigning you a heavy load. I want you to learn all of the 4 major principles and application techniques. Even if you can't master them yet, I expect you to know how to use every one of them." "I understand," both of them answered in unison. Their voices were steady, with not a hint of hesitation. Leo closed his eyes. No need to say more. Then he remembered the system reward from earlier. "System," Leo whispered, "redeem my 2B rank draws." Ding. 2B rank draws activated. Congratulations. You've acquired the B rank technique, Rakushiki, 6 powers. Congratulations. You've acquired the B rank item, data analyzing glasses. The knowledge flowed into his mind immediately, along with a flash in the system space, a sleek pair of glasses now stored for later. Elsewhere. Splash, splash. The sound of running water echoed from the bathroom. Scarlet water ran down the tiles, soaking the white porcelain in red. Hisoka stared at his injured shoulder in the mirror, lips curling. "It stings a little." Blood trickled from the wound like a crimson ribbon, staining the drain. He licked the corner of his mouth and whispered. "Let's hope Maki gets here soon. Otherwise, this arm might really become useless." Chapter 43. The next morning, the airship touched down on the rooftop of the Hunter Association. Menki, Sasi, Buara, and Lippo, all of whom had served as examiners for this year's exam, headed to the review board to deliver their report. Meanwhile, Leo and his group, including Shanark and Shizuku, parted ways with the staff and headed to the Hunter Hotel. Naturally, Hisoka and Kurapika followed close behind. Truthfully, both of them had been surprised when they ran into each other on the airship the night before. Neither expected that the other was affiliated with Leo. But once Leo introduced them, everything made sense. One had joined as a sparring partner, the other as an official member of Natural Disaster. Hunter Hotel. A luxurious facility operated directly by the Hunter Association, strictly off-limits to civilians, and reserved only for licensed hunters and their official affiliates. At the front desk, Leo handed over his hunter license. "Upgrade my room," he said. "And get 2 more rooms on the same floor, 1 for each of them." He turned and glanced over his shoulder at the group behind him. "Pass me your licenses." It was the first time Shanark, Shizuku, Hisoka, and Kurapika had ever stayed at a Hunter hotel. Unfamiliar with the process, they simply complied, handing their cards over without question. The receptionist, well accustomed to handling high-profile hunters, accepted the cards with a professional smile. "Understood. License verification complete. Welcome, Mr. Leo, Mr. Hisoka, Mr. Kurapika, Mr. Shanark, and Ms. Shizuku." Leo nodded and took back the cards. A moment later, a bellhop appeared and led the group toward their designated rooms. But just before everyone separated, Leo turned and addressed Hisoka and Kurapika flatly. "After you drop off your bags, ask the hotel staff to take you to the training hall on the top floor. Let me know when you're there." The abrupt instruction caught both men off guard. But they weren't foolish. If Leo wanted them there, he had a reason. Hisoka stroked his chin, grinning. "Are we starting already? I'm excited, can't wait to see how serious you are." Kurapika, on the other hand, narrowed his eyes with purpose. "I'm still holding you to what you said yesterday." Leo didn't respond. He simply waved behind him and walked off with Shanark and Shizuku. Hisoka watched him disappear down the hall, smiling like a predator remembering the taste of pain. Let's see if I can uncover one of your weaknesses, Leo. Beside him, Kurapika frowned as Hisaka licked his lips. Just the sound made his skin crawl. But still, he couldn't forget what Hisaka had told him the other day. Maybe, just maybe, I can squeeze more information about the Phantom Troop out of him. Top floor, training wing. About 30 minutes later, Hisaka and Kurapika arrived at the top floor. Hisaka raised his phone to his ear and called Leo. "We're here top floor. You coming to greet us, or should we wander around?" His voice was casual, teasing. The room was dead silent. Wide, spacious, and disturbingly high-tech. "This place is weird," Hisaka murmured. On the other end of the call, Leo's voice came through. "You're already on the top floor? Good. Head over to the bar and give my name to the attendant, they'll escort you to the Shingenryu training hall." "Oh fancy," Hisaka chuckled. "All right then. I'll head over with Lil Kura." A sharp voice chimed in beside him. "Stop calling me that." Sure. After ending the call, the two made their way to the reception desk, where staff led them down a secured hallway. Eventually, they arrived at a massive black door, its frame surrounded by metallic walls covered in embedded nen symbols. Hisaka raised an eyebrow. He released his N, trying to probe the room's contents. But nothing. It was like trying to scan through static. The entire area was shielded, and the aura was so well controlled that even he couldn't sense what was inside. But then, click. As soon as Hisaka held out his hunter license, the door began to open slowly. A chill raced down his spine. Hisaka blinked. It wasn't a door anymore. It felt like a gate to the underworld. A pressure oozed through the opening, not spiritual, but primal. Kurapika stood frozen. His scarlet eyes flared open, locked onto the darkness behind the crack. Boom! A thunderous gale erupted from the room. Blinding arcs of lightning exploded outward, filling the hallway with raw, vibrating energy. Hisaka's entire body twitched involuntarily. Kurapika's muscles stiffened as his hair stood on end. They hadn't even stepped inside. Yet the lightning was crawling across their skin. Then, through the crack in the door, they saw him. Leo. Floating half a meter off the ground, legs crossed in midair, wrapped in a cocoon of thunder. His eyes snapped open, and the arcs calmed at once. "Oh, you guys made it, Tilda? Sorry. Every time I meditate, it causes a bit of a ruckus. Kind of annoying, huh?" Hisaka narrowed his eyes slightly, suppressing a grin. That aura. It wasn't just electricity. That was raw, untamed pressure. And he was holding it back casually. Natural disaster, huh? Hisaka thought. Yeah. That name makes perfect sense. Short pause time. Apparently, if I don't talk here, the AI overlords get cranky. So hi YouTube algorithm, we love transformation. Okay, back to the story. Chapter 44. Come in already, Leo said, waving casually. Don't just stand there blocking the doorway. Hung this pressure. I'm getting excited again. Hisaka licked his lips, eyes gleaming. The disgust and disappointment he felt yesterday had vanished. In its place, battle hunger began to bubble once more. But before he could speak further, Kurapika suddenly asked, "Is this what you meant by the hidden test yesterday? It feels like there's an invisible field spreading outward. It's intense." Leo gave a short chuckle. Of course. What you're feeling is the aura of a professional hunter. But deep down, he was impressed. He hasn't even awakened Nen yet. But he can already sense the flow of aura. In truth, Leo had just been meditating. But rather than resting, he was attempting to fuse his Thunder Fruit abilities even more deeply with his Nen. As a result, the thunderous aura he emitted was unusually dense with Nen energy. For Kurapika to perceive that, even faintly, meant his sensitivity to Nen was exceptional. Leo adjusted the bridge of his nose. Huh? Glasses? Hisaka blinked. When did you start wearing those? Neither he nor Kurapika had noticed Leo putting on a pair of sleek, high-tech spectacles. But what they didn't know was that those glasses were scanning them in real time. Kurapika. Age, 17. Height, 171 centimeters. Health, 100%. Nen potential, 700, near awakening. Skill. Red eyes, passive, while in Scarlet Eyes state, transforms Nen to specialization, unlocking 100% potential of all learned abilities. Hisaka Moro. Age, 27. Height, 187 centimeters. Health, 100%. Nen output, 83,500. Skills. Bungee Gum, transforms aura into elastic gum to bind or manipulate objects and enemies. Texture Surprise, alters the appearance of objects with Nen-based skin to create illusions. Leo's eyes flashed behind the lenses as he analyzed the readouts. Kurapika's Nen is low since he hasn't awakened yet. But his potential is real. As for Hisaka, 83,000 is solid. For comparison, Shanark is around 50,000, and Shizuku sits at about 4,000. Still, Hisaka's nowhere near veteran top-tier fighters. But his power should be enough to defeat a division-level enemy. Neither of them knew they were being evaluated in real time. But when Leo had mentioned the power of a professional hunter, Kurapika's gaze had sharpened. Hisaka, meanwhile, smirked to himself. So this is why he brought Kurapika into the team. Using the lure of learning Nen to secure loyalty, how clever. He was aware that the Hunter Association typically arranged for professionals to receive Nen training after licensing. Leo was clearly using Kurapika's lack of that knowledge to recruit him into natural disaster. Still, Hisaka wasn't about to interrupt. Watching how things unfolded was far more entertaining. Kurapika stepped forward. Leo explained the basics quickly, then clarified, there are two ways to awaken Nen. If you train diligently, it'll happen naturally within 6 months. Kurapika shook his head. If there's a way to awaken it now, I want to do it. His voice was calm but resolute. I trust you. Even if something goes wrong, you'll be able to handle it. Leo smiled faintly. Good. Saves me time. Alright. Turn around. Shirt off. Kurapika did as instructed, facing away and removing his shirt without hesitation. Leo stepped forward and placed a hand on his back. Nen. At that moment, a rush of aura surged from Leo's palm, washing across Kurapika's body and blasting open all his pores. Kurapika gasped. This is Nen? His hands trembled slightly as he raised them, seeing a faint layer of translucent aura forming around them. Leo's voice guided him. Picture your aura like blood. Let it flow from your heart, through your body, down your limbs. Keep it moving, don't let it leak. Kurapika's mind focused. And in less than a minute, the leaking aura began to stabilize, drawing inward as his body adjusted to its flow. Leo clapped his hands with a grin. Congratulations. You've successfully awakened your Nen. And welcome, officially, to Natural Disaster, Chapter 45. Hunter Hotel, Heartsource-style training room, top floor. Kurapika sat cross-legged in front of Leo, a notebook balanced on his knee, listening with laser focus. He had just completed the Mizumi Shiki water divination and confirmed his affinity, materialization. Now, every word Leo spoke carried weight. Nen training, Leo explained, is divided into 3 modules. The 4 foundational techniques. Advanced applications. Development of your personal ability, your HxH. Kurapika nodded firmly. Understood. After witnessing the overwhelming power of Nen firsthand, there was no hesitation. If he was to avenge his clan, if he was to reclaim the Scarlet Eyes stolen from his people, mastering Nen was no longer a luxury. It was survival. Seeing Kurapika's determination, Leo didn't hold back. Kurapika was now part of natural disaster, and the stronger he became, the more valuable he would be to the team. The basics are Ten, Zetsu, Ren, and HxH. Leo stood and began demonstrating the techniques in sequence, letting his aura fluctuate and flow in distinct patterns. Ten maintains the flow of aura across your body, creating a defensive shell. Its strength directly affects how well you withstand enemy Nen attacks. Zetsu suppresses your aura completely. It hides your presence but leaves you defenseless. It also helps with rest and healing. Ren increases the output of your aura exponentially. It's what gives a Nen user their power. HxH is your unique application. It reflects your personality and abilities. That's where true individuality in combat comes from. Kurapika's hand was flying across the notebook, copying everything Leo said. Nearby, Shizuku, who had been assigned special training by Leo, watched silently. "You're really dedicated," she muttered. Seeing Kurapika so focused made her reflect on her own progress. She had already learned the 4 basic techniques from Shanark back on Chibal Island, but compared to Kurapika's intensity, she felt lazy. "Yeah. He's serious," Shanark added with a rare tone of sincerity. He, too, resumed his training. Although Shanark's power was already substantial, Leo believed there was still room to grow. His Nen had been self-taught through Meteor Street's brutal reality, a patchwork of instinct and survival. Now, under Heartsource-style instruction, he was reworking the fundamentals from scratch. On the other side of the room, Hisoka observed silently. "The basics of Nen," he muttered to himself, unusually focused. "If I relearn from the ground up, maybe I can push even further." Like Shanark, Hisoka had never received formal Nen training. All of his power had come from instinct, creativity, and constant combat. But now, hearing Leo teach systematically, he realized just how much potential still lay untapped. A slow, twisted smile spread across his face. "I can't wait to fight you again, Leo." Time passed. In the blink of an eye, a full month of training went by. On the 2nd day, Hisoka's arm was reattached thanks to a timely visit from Maki. Watching her work with delicate precision, Leo raised an eyebrow. "She's bold," he muttered. "Coming this close to the association's headquarters. Not afraid of being spotted by bounty hunters?" From that day forward, a new rumor began circulating. The Hunter Hotel has a mysterious healer. Broken arms, ruptured organs, deep wounds, it didn't matter. As long as you were still breathing, you could be saved. All for under 100 million jenny. Meanwhile, Leo's lessons continued. Alongside Nen, he began teaching everyone the 6 forms, a taijutsu-style physical combat system from another world. Hisoka especially thrived in this environment, serving as a sparring partner with wild dedication. His aggression helped accelerate everyone's growth. Shizuku and Kurapika had both completed the fundamentals and were now entering their HxH development phase. Shizuku chose to work with her sniper rifle as the foundation for her ability. Kurapika chose chains. Just like in the original timeline. Leo didn't interfere. He only offered one quiet suggestion. "The Phantom Troop is evil. No doubt. But ask yourself. After the Kurta massacre, aren't there others who profited from their deaths? Who traded in your clan's eyes? Aren't they also enemies?" Kurapika's original chain vow had restricted his abilities to only affect members of the troop. It was a powerful boost, but severely limiting. Leo's suggestion, reframe the vow to target all who persecute the Kurta, would vastly expand its utility. A small change in wording. A massive difference in potential. Whether Kurapika would follow that advice, Leo left up to him. As for Hisaka, his improvement was staggering. He had absorbed everything Leo taught Kurapika like a sponge, then incorporated it into his own fighting style. His aura output began climbing fast. He couldn't beat Leo yet. But compared to his old self a month ago, he could defeat two of that version without breaking a sweat. And still, he grinned. Stronger. Stronger. Just a little more, Leo. I'll tear you apart. Chapter 46. Hunter Hotel in the Heart Source School's training room on the top floor. Kurapika had just learned through the water divination test that his Nen type was conjuration. Now, he sat across from Leo, carefully listening to his instruction. The practice of Nen, Leo began, can be broken into 3 modules. The 4 basic principles, advanced applications, and personal Hatsu development. Kurapika remained composed, absorbing everything. He dared not miss a word. After witnessing the power of Nen firsthand, he understood its importance. If he wanted to take revenge on the Phantom Troop and recover his clan's Scarlet Eyes, Nen training was essential. Seeing his dedication, Leo didn't hold back. Kurapika was now part of natural disaster, and the stronger he became, the more value he'd add to the team. Leo continued, the 4 basics are Ten, Zetsu, Ren, and Hatsu. He stood and personally demonstrated Ten, Zetsu, and Ren in front of Kurapika, ensuring he could observe them in detail. He also began explaining their functions. Ten maintains and stabilizes aura around the body, acting as passive defense against Nen attacks. Zetsu suppresses aura output to reduce visibility and recover stamina, completely disables defense. Ren increases the quantity and intensity of aura output, raising both offensive and defensive potential. Hatsu, the unique application of Nen based on a user's personality and type, essentially their personal technique. The amount of content was overwhelming. Kurapika took out a notebook to record everything. He was meticulous. Shizuku, who had been assigned to train alongside Kurapika, couldn't help but sigh. You're working really hard. It's making me feel guilty for slacking off. She had previously learned the basics from Shanark back on Chichel Island, but Kurapika's intensity reminded her she could push further. Shanark nodded. Yeah. His focus is something else. He returned to his own training. While he had a solid foundation, Leo believed both he and Shizuku had much room to grow. The techniques they had self-learned back in Meteor City were crude compared to structured Heart Source style Nen. So Leo had them both retrain from the ground up. Hisaka's mood had shifted too. He sat in a corner, murmuring to himself. The basics, huh? Maybe if I relearn from scratch, I'll push past my current limits. He'd also learned Nen through intuition and survival, not formal instruction. But hearing Leo's teachings made him realize where his foundations were lacking, and that excited him. I'm looking forward to getting stronger. Then maybe I can have another life or death match with you, Leo. His grin twisted with anticipation. 1 month later. The month flew by in the training room. On the second day, Hisaka's friend Maki had arrived to reattach his arm. Watching her calmly stitch it up, Leo muttered, Maki really has guts. Coming this close to the association's headquarters with a high bounty on her head was a bold move. From that day forward, a new rumor spread in the Hunter Association. The Hunter Hotel now had a miracle healer. Broken arms, ruptured organs, she could fix anything. As long as you weren't dead, you'd walk out alive. Price? Less than 100 million Jenny. Beyond Nen, Leo also taught everyone Rakushiki, the 6 styles of the Navy. Hisaka made good use of his role as sparring partner, helping accelerate everyone's progress. Kurapika and Shizuku had already mastered the 4 nen basics and were now focused on developing their hatsu. Shizuku chose to base her hatsu on her role as a sniper. Kurapika, much like in the original timeline, leaned toward conjuring chains. Leo didn't interfere, only offered a small, deliberate piece of advice. The Phantom Troop is certainly evil. But after your clan was wiped out, weren't there others involved? Other traffickers, brokers, black market dealers? If you restrict your hatsu to only act against the Phantom Troop, would you be able to avenge everyone? Kurapika fell silent. In the canon, his limitation was narrow, his chains could only be used against the spiders. It made him powerful but came with obvious risks. By slightly altering the wording, to anyone who persecutes the Korta clan he could maintain a strong restriction, but not at the cost of flexibility. Leo left the decision to him. Meanwhile, Hisaka also progressed. Now that he was training properly for the first time, his nen capacity began growing rapidly. He became more proficient in shaping and controlling aura. He still couldn't beat Leo. But compared to his self from a month ago, 2-on-1 would be light work. Chapter 47. Hunter Association Headquarters. Standing outside Netaro's office, Leo knocked on the door. Knock. 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 Come in. Leo pushed open the door and entered. Unlike before, Netaro was alone in the room, except for one other man. He wore a police-style cap and had the demeanor of a strict disciplinary officer. Leo frowned slightly. The man's face looked vaguely familiar. While Leo observed the man was sizing Leo up in return. Steady breathing. Muscles slightly tensed, ready to counterattack at any time. He's a good candidate. But too bad he's Netaro's man. As the tension built between them, Netaro suddenly broke into a hearty laugh. Dora, this is the helper I mentioned, the 287th new hunter, Leo. Helper? Leo raised a brow but stayed quiet. President, this isn't a minor situation. Are you sure you want to assign this to a rookie? Dora frowned, casting a skeptical glance at Leo. Involving a newcomer in something like this could be a major liability for the association if things go wrong. Netaro's grin widened. He turned to Leo with a casual smile. Leo, why don't you show us a little of your nen? Leo nodded without hesitation. He was used to being underestimated. With a calm breath, he released his aura. Sizzle, boom. Electric arcs danced wildly as dense aura erupted and filled the room with crackling power. What? Dora's eyes went wide in shock. The sheer pressure of Leo's nen far surpassed his own. He could barely swallow. Still smiling, Netaro said cheerfully, You see, Dora? This one's a little monster I personally trained. I feel plenty confident letting him assist you. Beads of sweat formed on Dora's forehead. Unbothered, Netaro turned back to Leo and explained. A few hours ago, we received a distress signal from Talame City. The signal came from a licensed hunter, Pabu, Class 279. We coordinated with the local search and rescue teams. But within the hour, Pabu's signal disappeared completely. And this isn't the first time. Netaro's tone grew slightly more serious. Over the last 3 years, 8 licensed hunters have gone missing in Talame. Leo frowned. So the moment you saw me at HQ, you were already planning to throw me into the fire? Netaro chuckled. Come on now. You've been cooped up training for a month. Don't you want a little action to stretch your legs? And hey, I'm even giving you a teammate. He waggled his eyebrows, as if waiting for praise. Old man, if you just talk like a normal person, we could still be friends, Leo muttered. Suddenly. Knock, knock, Knock. Someone knocked on the door. Netero looked to Leo with a sly grin. That's your new partner. Why don't you get the door? Leo sighed and opened it. A woman stood there, shoulder-length green hair, round black glasses, and a headband with dog-ear designs. Her presence was composed but carried weight. HxH Yorkshire. Codename Dog of the 12 Zodiacs. An expert in medical science and law, and the brains of the Zodiac Group. Also, the future 14th chairman of the Hunter Association. HxH blinked at the young man answering the door. And you are? Before Leo could reply, Netero called out from behind him. That's Leo. Our rising star from the 287th batch. Realization flashed across HxH's face. Ah. So you're Leo. She stepped forward and offered her hand. HxH Yorkshire. Nice to meet you. Leo smiled and took her hand, giving it a firm but respectful shake. Pleasure's mine. HxH glanced at him curiously. During the handshake, she felt it clearly, his nen flow was unnervingly stable. Almost. Unnaturally so. This level of 10, it's already on par with high-ranking hunters. Possibly even one of the 12. She studied Leo's youthful face. Just how far can this one go? Chapter 48. Hunter Association Headquarters. Standing outside Netero's office, Leo knocked on the door. Knock. 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 Come in. Leo pushed the door open and stepped inside. Unlike before, this time Netero was the only one in the room, aside from a man in a disciplinary committee uniform and a police-style cap. As Leo looked at him, he felt an odd sense of familiarity. While Leo was sizing up the man was also scrutinizing Leo, thinking to himself. His breathing is calm. Muscles tight, poised to counter. If he's only been awakened for a month, he's impressive. A pity he belongs to the chairman. As the two silently studied each other, Netero suddenly burst out laughing. Dora, this is the helper I mentioned, Leo, the newest hunter from the 287th class. Helper? Leo raised a brow slightly. Chairman, this case is no small matter. Can we really leave it to a newcomer? Dora frowned as he turned toward Netero. He wasn't questioning Leo's talent, but he couldn't help doubting whether someone so young and fresh could truly handle what was ahead. Let's not even talk about success or failure. If something happens, losing a promising newcomer would be a huge loss to the association. Netero chuckled again and glanced at Leo. Leo, show him your aura. Without a word, Leo complied. He released his nen slowly and deliberately. Crackle, boom. A surge of dense, electric-charged aura filled the room instantly. Dora's eyes widened in shock. This level of aura. Compared to his own full power output, Leo's aura was on an entirely different level. Seeing Dora's stunned expression, Netero chuckled. You probably didn't know. But I trained this boy myself. I'd say it's safe to let him back you up. Beads of sweat rolled down Dora's forehead. Meanwhile, Netero turned to Leo and explained. A few hours ago, the association received a distress signal from Talon City. We quickly confirmed that the signal came from Pabu, hunter number 279. We contacted local rescue services to coordinate. But within an hour, Pabu's signal disappeared. Netero's voice grew colder. And according to records, 8 pro-hunters have disappeared in Talon City in just the past 3 years. So, Leo caught on instantly. Rescuing Pabu is just the cover. You want to investigate the disappearances. Netero nodded with a sharp glint in his eyes. We need to find out what's really going on. Just then, HxH, one of the 12 Zodiacs, narrowed her eyes behind her black glasses. The dog-ear-shaped accessory on her head twitched slightly. If this is more than just a rescue, then our current manpower may not be enough. Dora nodded. She's right. 3 people is fine for a search, but for a combined investigation and rescue, we'll be spread too thin. Hearing that, Netero gave Leo a meaningful look. Ho ho ho, I hear a certain team's training nearby. Wonder if they're free to help Tilda. Leo's brow twitched. Old man, just say it outright. You mean, natural disaster. Hearing the name of Leo's team, Kwaijuo turned to him and asked directly. Mr. Leo, may I formally request your, natural disaster, team's cooperation on this operation? Leo didn't hesitate. They're already downstairs. We can leave any time. Kwaijuo was momentarily stunned but quickly regained her composure. The airship is ready on the rooftop. We can depart now. Leo took out his phone and sent a text to Shizuku. Exactly 1 minute later, Shanark, Shizuku, Kurapika, and even Hisako walked into the room. Seeing Hisaka among them, Leo raised an eyebrow. He hadn't expected Hisaka to come too, but now wasn't the time to question it. He simply turned to the others and said, "The natural disaster team is here." Dora and Kwaijuo nodded in approval. Recognizing their capability, neither wasted time with small talk. "Chairman, we're heading out. We'll report once we know what's happening in Talum City," Kwaijuo said. Leo gave a casual wave. "Old man, let Menki know, will you Tilda?" Talum City. The association's airship descended gently onto the rooftop of a high-rise building. As Leo and his team stepped out, everyone frowned. The environment was unpleasant. There was a faint, acrid smell in the air, not quite stench, but enough to make one uncomfortable. Only Leo and Shanark looked unaffected. After all, both had grown up in Meteor City. By comparison, Talum's environment was child's play. Dora stepped out from the group, turning to Kwaijuo and Leo's team. "I'm going to the coordinates where Pabu's distress signal came from. Kwaijuo, I'll leave the rest of the city to you and the natural disaster team." This had been discussed on the airship, so neither Leo nor Kwaijuo objected. Honestly, Leo would rather work with Kwaijuo than chase after a missing guy with a grumpy man like Dora. As soon as he got their nods, Dora left quickly, disappearing into the building via elevator. Now only Kwaijuo, Leo, Shanark, Shizuku, Kurapika, and Hisaka remained on the rooftop. Leo turned toward Kwaijuo. "So, what's the next step in your investigation?" Kwaijuo pushed her glasses up and replied calmly. "We're unfamiliar with the city. That puts us at a disadvantage. To conduct a proper investigation, we either need help from local forces, or someone with local knowledge." She paused, then added, "Luckily, a former patient of mine lives in Talum. We may be able to start there." Leo raised an eyebrow in surprise. Doctors really do have wide-ranging connections. Chapter 49. Talum Hospital. Leo stood outside a ward. Through the transparent glass door, he could see the layout of the room inside. The setup was simple: a bed, a sofa, a TV, and a window. Kwaijuo stood at the bedside, her face tense as she looked at the haggard, unconscious woman. Her expression turned even gloomier. After a moment, with the soft creak of the ward door opening, Kwaijuo stepped out and met Leo's gaze. "Lily Daisy's condition has worsened," she said quietly. "But she had basically recovered a month ago. Why is she like this now?" Leo raised an eyebrow. A patient who was seemingly cured had relapsed after returning home, and even gotten worse. Yeah, that was definitely strange. Thinking about the nature of this mission, he asked bluntly. "So your only contact in Talum City is now out of commission?" Kwaijuo didn't speak, she simply nodded, the faintest hint of embarrassment coloring her face. She hadn't expected that as one of the 12 zodiac signs, she'd find herself in such an awkward position in front of a new hunter. Leo didn't press the issue. Having useful contacts was always a bonus, but not having any, not a problem. With a small grin, he turned toward her and said casually, "Come on, I'll take you to meet some of my friends." "Friends? You have connections in Talum City?" Kwaijuo blinked in surprise. Leo's grin widened slightly, a mischievous glint in his eye. "Of course. I've got plenty of friends all over. I'm sure they'll be more than happy to help." He didn't bother to explain further. He just turned and began walking toward the elevator, heading for the first floor where Shanark and the others were still waiting. Kwaijuo hesitated. She knew if they went Leo's way, the chain of command would change, he'd take the lead, and she'd become the backup. But thinking of the 8 missing hunters, she stared at Leo's back for a moment, then silently followed. First floor. Shanark, Shizuku, Hisaka, and Kurapika waited in the hospital lobby. While they awaited news from Leo and Kwaijuo, they also kept alert to their surroundings. After all, the briefing on the airship had made the stakes clear. 8 professional hunters had gone missing in Talum City. Nobody knew if it was targeted or random, but one thing was certain: caution was a necessity. Suddenly, footsteps echoed from the elevator. The group turned. Leo and Kwaijuo stepped into the lobby together. "Captain, how did it go?" Kurapika asked first. Hisaka, seeing Kwaijuo's troubled expression, chuckled darkly. Looks like this is going to be more fun than I thought." Under everyone's gaze, Leo raised his hands, looking a little exasperated. "Nothing useful. Our target's unconscious, serious condition." "Then what's our next move?" Shizuku asked bluntly. "We're not just going to sit around and wait for her to wake up, are we?" Leo smirked. "What comes next?" he repeated. "We go look for my good friends, of course." "Good friends?" Shanark tilted his head, clearly confused. But before anyone could ask, Leo turned toward the far end of the hospital lobby, his voice laced with amusement. "See? They're right over there." The others followed his gaze. Across the lobby, a group of men in black suits stood huddled in conversation, looking like your stereotypical gangsters. Kurapika's expression twitched. "Captain, these are your friends?" Shanark looked genuinely curious. If he'd ever seen these people before, he didn't remember. "Yup," Leo replied, still grinning. "Good friends." With that, he strode confidently toward the group. As Leo approached, the gang members noticed him and got to their feet. "Hey, you looking for trouble?" But in the blink of an eye, Leo vanished. "What the?" The gangster's eyes widened in disbelief. Then, without warning, a voice came from directly behind them. "Yo, I'd like to ask you something. Got a moment?" That voice sent shivers down their spines. They whipped around, only to see Leo standing behind them, smiling casually. "Wah, when the hell did you?" But before the man could finish, his words slowed. And stopped. Because at that moment, 3 spinning tomoe bloomed in Leo's eyes, the Mangekyo Sharingan had activated. The gangsters froze. Speechless. Stunned. Ensnared. Chapter 50. At this time, in the gang members' eyes, the rotation of the 3 tomoe Sharingan was accelerating. Only when the spinning tomoe completely filled their field of vision did the Sharingan stop. Leo spoke softly. "Genjutsu, Sharingan. The Sharingan, the eye of spiritual reflection, possesses a hypnotic ability. Just by meeting a person's gaze, it can induce effects like hallucinations, hypnosis, or mental suggestion." Leo hadn't formally studied genjutsu techniques. But with the Sharingan, controlling a few minds like this was still within his grasp. As the tomoe turned steadily, the expressions of the gang members dulled. Seeing this, Leo began his questioning. "How many gangs are active in Talum City?" Who truly controls the city? Has anything unusual happened here in recent years? Under the genjutsu's effect, the dazed gangsters began answering honestly, one after another. There are lots of gangs in Talim City, but they mainly fall into two types, traditional and new factions. The traditional gang is led by the Haya family. They run underground casinos and similar businesses. The emerging gang is headed by the Shanzi family. They handle alcohol, designer drugs, private security, and brothels. Officially, Talim City is governed by Mayor Jason, but in truth, he's just a puppet jointly backed by Haya and Shanzi. The intel flowed freely, and Leo quickly pieced together a clear picture of Talim's underground world. Suddenly, one of the gangsters grimaced, as if recalling something painful. Actually, about 5 years ago, a mysterious group surfaced here. My sister was one of the first to join them. At first, she made a fortune. The family was thrilled. By the second year, she became the third in command in that syndicate. But by the third year, she died. They said her body was buried behind the mountains, but no one was allowed to visit her grave. The story was scattered, but the message was clear. A black market syndicate? Kurapika echoed, deep in thought. Despite his extensive knowledge, he had never heard of such a faction. Beside him, Cheadle, Kwaijuo, frowned thoughtfully. Now that you mention it. When Lily Daisy was hospitalized under my care, I recall her briefly mentioning some gang connections. Exclamation mark. The group froze. What was supposed to be a patient's relapse now had possible ties to the criminal underworld. But just as they processed this, ding-ling-ling ding-ling-ling. A phone rang. One of the gangsters had received a call. Kurapika looked to Leo. Captain? Looks like someone's checking in, Hisaka said with a grin. Shiba added seriously, it might be from their organization. Should we let him answer? But Leo waved them off. No need. He'll answer himself. The Sharingan spun once more. Under its control, the gangster slowly retrieved his phone and answered the call. A voice on the other end barked. Where the hell are you? You better not be slacking off, don't forget the boss is personally inspecting the site in an hour. Show up late and I'll bury you in concrete. Still under hypnosis. The gangster responded instantly with groveling apologies. I'm terribly sorry. We'll be back immediately. Please forgive us, Boss Longji. After the call ended, he returned to a blank, hypnotized state. But no one paid him attention anymore. Because they had just learned something crucial. The boss of the Shanzi family would be visiting in 1 hour. Several eyes turned serious at once. That leader probably knows much more than these lackeys, Leo said calmly. If there's something sinister happening in this city, he might be at the center of it. Everyone nodded in agreement. But just then, Shanark tilted his head and asked with a puzzled tone. Wait. Aren't they your friends? If so, why not just ask them directly? The room fell silent. Everyone turned toward him with complicated expressions. Shanark's innocent comment landed with comedic timing. Despite being a tactical genius, his overly literal and innocent demeanor never failed to surprise them. Leo chuckled, walked over, and gently ruffled his hair. Yeah, they're my friends. And friends should share information. Right? And that's a wrap, hunters, high voltage sign emoji, open book emoji. Another amazing Hunter x Hunter fanfic added to the books. Massive shout out to the original author, their info's down in the description, so go show 'em some love, blue heart emoji. If you're new here and vibing with the videos, smash that like button, drop a comment, even if it's just screaming Killua supremacy, triumphant face emoji, speech bubble emoji, and hit subscribe to officially join the cult, community. Yay! The Hunter community, eyes emoji. Your support, comments, likes, polls, coffees, everything, keeps this channel alive and motivates me way more than you probably realize, brain emoji. Oh, and don't forget to check the community tab. I actually post polls, memes, and cult lore there, not just endless sub begging like some audiobook bots, embarrassed smiley face emoji. That's it for now. Peace. And love y'all, headphone emoji, red heart emoji.